And good morning. It is a Tuesday edition of Glenn Clark Radio. I'm Glenn. He's Griffin. You thought you had an unpleasant night watching the USMNT national team. Imagine how unpleasant it must have been for Jeremy Kahn. Because
he probably went to bed, so you didn't have to feel it in real time.
Yeah, it's over. It's Dunsky.
Thank goodness.
Well, for you, obviously, thank goodness. For him, not quite so much. Not so much goodness there. Italy, gone. United States, gone. Bolivia, gone.
So wait,
Ukraine, gone.
So since Portugal and Slovenia went to PKs, that's not a draw. That's just a win for Portugal.
No, we just do the advanced thing now.
Okay.
Yeah, everything's just in advance. But you're fine. He can't get above 12 points.
Yeah, but I thought I might still have an outside chance of winning.
No,
Colombia. If Colombia wins the Copa,
yeah, okay. Fine.
Netherlands
Colombia
goes on a run in the Euros.
Jeremy is Dunsky. He will be the loser of this. He did pay, so he did officially yesterday pay to consume 5 mayo hot dogs. So we got to get that lined up. We got to get his big.
I'll make them with love.
What's that?
I'll make them with love.
I appreciate that. We got to get it all lined up. We got to get it all lined up timing wise. We got to work on that. But that's over, as we have clinched a loser in the Euro Copa Mayo Dog Challenge. Now some high drama at the top of the table, where I have a very narrow 1-point advantage over John Proctor and 2 points over Dr. Nick Kelly. I'm not sure if that math is right. I don't know. We're trusting people to have actually updated the whole thing and the whole program.
Oh, yeah, you might.
And Lord knows I have not bothered to pay attention and follow along with that type of stuff. But
you may be owed an extra point, because I don't know if the bonus points.
Yeah, I thought
because Spain has 4 wins, one of those being
in the. So Switzerland also has a win. Switzerland's win over Italy was in the round of 16.
Okay, so then I guess you have a couple more points.
I feel like I'm owed other points. We need to make this a priority before we leave for vacation.
Well, I don't. Okay.
To regroup and just you need to get together with Proctor.
You get together with him?
You don't have to physically do it. Just need to call him.
I'd rather eat hot dogs.
What's that?
I'd rather eat mayo hot dogs.
Well, okay, then you can do that. I'll give you that option. You can do the hot dogs. I'll coordinate with Proctor. Need to get this straightened out, because I do believe I'm missing a few points here. And if that ends up being a difference in the end, I will sue. Just understand.
If we could get a PK shootout between you and Proctor,
I will be litigious. Who would win a PK shootout between Proctor and I? We're both old is the problem here. I think at a younger age, Proctor would have.
Are you both the same age?
Proctor was a bit more pliable at a younger age. We used to play Ultimate Frisbee together. I was also, I went through my particularly fat. When I was at my fattest, would still show up and play Ultimate Frisbee on Sundays. But Proctor was still very pliable and was running a lot of the. Now we're both old. I'm not fat anymore.
But
I'm not pliable. I'm old. That's all it is. Just old. So I think that a PK shootout between he and I would come down to, do you put it on net all 5 times? Do you end up skying one? I think a lot of it would come down. I don't think either one of us is going to be Diego Costa. What was the name of the Portuguese goalie who made 3 saves on 3 PKs?
I think it was Diego Costa.
After Cristiano Ronaldo was in tears because he had his PK save. That was butt awkward. Very uncomfortable in that moment. I don't think either one of us are going to be that. I don't think we're going to be making the only question is, do we accidentally run into a save? Because we're going to be flat-footed for sure. You forget how big a soccer goal is, man. You're like, I could save a PK. Then you stand inside a soccer goal and you're like, nope. Nope. You can talk yourself into you could lay out. Dude, you're 40. You're not doing that. We need to get the bottom of the actual scoring, because I do believe I'm missing some points there. That's the way that I feel. Coming up on the program today, we're going to preview the Mariners. Dave Sims, Mariners play-by-play voice, will join us a little bit later on. Orioles and Mariners open up a series tonight. We'll talk more about the Birds. Connor Newcomb, Locked On Orioles, will join us a little bit later on. Also, this morning, we're going to catch up with my buddy Gregg Rosenthal. He's with NFL Network and NFL.com, and I guess, those things are cool. But obviously, whenever I chat with Gregg, it's because I want to talk about tennis. He is the host of the ill-fated Courts of Thunder podcast, which I'll have you know was number 1 in, the Dominican Republic and other random countries that I got an email one day, and I found out we had the number 1 sports podcast in the Dominican. I was like, hell yeah! And then we were number 3 in Serbia or something like that. Nice. It was a very strange run for Courts of Thunder.
It's impressive.
Is it, though? I don't know why it was so popular.
Those are large countries.
Not really.
They're populated.
Not really.
Well, they have people.
Yeah. That's true. They're actually humans there. But we'll catch up with Gregg a little bit later on this hour. Obviously, the topic du jour today for one day is not the Baltimore Orioles. It is, of course, U.S. soccer. And as you know, I am the definitive expert to discuss this particular topic. So I am so glad that you have chosen me to give the full-on breakdown. Look, man.
Fire everybody.
And this is the problem. I mean, really, eternally is the problem. There are knowledgeable people whose opinions I respect that do say, look, it's probably time for Greg Berhalter to go. But there are also a lot of knowledgeable people whose opinions I respect who kind of laugh at how quickly we all want to just fire coaches all of the time. And admittedly, I tend, because of the way I deal with this in other places, because of the insanity of how you guys try to get after Brandon Hyde when all his team ever does is win, and John Harbaugh, my natural inclination whenever anyone screams about firing the coach is to say, well, wait a second. Because with all due respect, most of you are effing idiots. And I love you. And you're very special people. And you can sleep in mom and dad's bed tonight if you'd like. But this is just what we do. As a society, our inclination is, we didn't like what happened, fire the coach. That's who we are. More or less because it's the only thing you can do. You can't, Drew always used to say, you can't fire the players. It doesn't work that way. That's the reason why we react this way. Our inclination when we don't like something is fire the coach. Why? Because he didn't win the championship every year. Honestly. That's honestly our expectation. Win the championship every year or we want you fired. This is just who we are. It's pea-brained. Now, there are times when something is quite clearly broken, and it's obvious that whether it's the coach's fault or not, you just got to change. Plenty of times where that becomes obvious. Not always, but it happens lots. I don't know if U.S. soccer is broken, personally. I think it's easy to say that because you clearly didn't like the result of this tournament. Everybody looked at this group and said, oh, well, obviously the U.S. is moving out of this group. Panama and Bolivia? You don't move out of this group. You should be embarrassed. We also all know what happened. Going into the tournament, all of you that believed the U.S. was moving out of this group, none of you believed it was because they were beating Uruguay. It was because Bolivia and Panama. So they beat Bolivia, and then we all know what happened against Panama. So those of you that are fire Berhalter, some of you I understand, this is who you are. It's in your blood. You're always going to try to fire the coach. But those of you that are using the failure to get out of the group as your justification for why you're firing Greg Berhalter, my question would be, if there's no red card against Panama, The U.S. wins that match 1-0. And they're today on to the quarterfinals. Are you suddenly inclined to say, good job, Greg? It's why it's hard for me to take this very seriously. If what you're trying to use as the justification for firing Gregg Berhalter is not making the quarterfinals, you know why they didn't make the quarterfinals. You know. They didn't make the quarterfinals because of a red card. Now, if you believe that's because Gregg Berhalter has lost his team and the players don't believe him and don't respect him and, the guys have no discipline, well, okay, you could feel that way. I don't think that's been something that I've heard a lot. Nothing about that moment suggests that it had anything to do with Gregg Berhalter. Now, I get it. They had the opportunity to bounce back. And we can say, look, man, everything about last night was effing embarrassing. My God. It's so embarrassing.
It felt like the Twilight Zone.
There was a moment during the broadcast in the second half where they're like, as they're continuing to replay the goal, they're like, well, in the Euro, they have chip technology. And in the Copa America, it's... I don't know. Maybe. Like, what do they even have VAR for? By the way, at one point, I swear to God, I looked at, like, the goal box, and I swear to Christ, it looked like it wasn't even a straight line. Like, it looked like it curved at one point.
Like the line they added on the TV?
No.
Oh, like the actual...
No, the actual painted-on box. Did not even... It had to be when it was zoomed in, because obviously you couldn't see S from the original camera angle. But when they were doing a zoomed-in replay...
They weren't on location either.
It looked like... Well, I mean, Fox does that S all the time. And also, in fairness to Fox, I don't even know if that's a CONMEBOL thing where they were like, hey, we don't have room for the broadcasters, so sorry, you're SO. I mean, it's just so embarrassing. Everything about this event is embarrassing. If Gregg Berhalter gets fired, I am certainly not going to be angry about it. It's no sweat off my ass. I don't care. I think there's the best argument for moving on from Gregg Berhalter, besides those of you that think that you know lots, that you just don't know nearly as much as you believe you know. The best argument to me for moving on from Gregg Berhalter is essentially just, we're looking for a lottery ticket. And we'll just keep, it's like a scratch-off. We'll keep scratching them off until we happen to find one that wins us $1 billion. The Gregg Berhalter one won us thousands of dollars. That's the sort of the problem with having this conversation, is it requires you to ignore all of the actual accomplishments of Gregg Berhalter's time as the coach of U.S. Soccer. Bouncing back from the disaster that was in 2018 and getting them into the World Cup. Kind of dominating CONCACAF. Ask Mexico how they felt about U.S. soccer in recent years. And I get it. Somebody would say, that's a very low bar. Sure. May I present to you U.S. soccer? You might as well call it low bar. And that eternally to me is the problem. The inherent issue with this conversation is, what do you think U.S. soccer is supposed to be? And I understand that it's not justification that someone's doing a bang-up job. Me saying, hey, I think that U.S. soccer is never going to be good enough. Somebody said, well, do you just pack up and not try? No, I think you keep trying. But I think at some point you have to acknowledge, you can say, hey, there's better talent. And they were able to get players like, Tillman and Balogun to like commit to playing for the U.S. And those are good things. But pretending like the U.S. has the talent at the level of other countries is nonsense. I love Christian Pulisic. But come on, man. We're saying these types of things to make ourselves feel better. What do we think U.S. soccer is? The goalies clearly, in fairness, once upon a time, there was a goalie standard in the United States. That was the one thing we did have, and this group has been pretty meh. It's been a pretty meh group of goalies post Tim Howard. They've all had their moments. Turner had a moment. Horvath had a moment. Even Zach Steffen had a moment. But none of them are, it's not just they're not Tim Howard. None of them are special. They're goalies. Now, in fairness, Italy's got a goalie. How'd that work out for them? They don't have anything else. And that was kind of the story of U.S. soccer for some time. Got a goalie. Good luck with everything else. I just don't know what U.S. soccer is supposed to be. You want to fire Gregg Berhalter? Fire Gregg Berhalter. Try scratching off another lottery ticket. Expecting that it's going to be wildly different is kind of laughable. Like, imagine something has been a certain way for the entirety of your life. And you're like, well, it's the thing that we were doing yesterday, the Arrested Development meme.
Might be different for us.
Might be different for us.
Yeah.
Maybe if we just hire this guy. Remember, Jurgen Klinsmann was going to solve U.S. soccer. He had real success running a real program. Bring him in here. He'll solve things. We just keep doing this. We talk ourselves into the idea that it's the coach. Man, I'm not here to tell you Gregg Berhalter is a great coach or will ever lead the U.S. to significant accomplishments. I'm here to tell you that I don't think the next guy is going to either. That you're kind of doing these things for the sake of doing it and ignoring the actual accomplishments. That we've actually had good feelings. I get that we kind of invented this, what do they call it, the Confederations Cup?
The
thing that
like
the U.S.
the CONCACAF? Or
yeah. Not obviously there's the Gold Cup, which is for the U23. Then they invented this other tournament at the U.S. was dominant. And you're like, well, it's make-believe, but like, they were playing. These were legitimately the Mexican national teams. And for much of our history, that would have never happened. And I understand that it required Mexico to be a little down. I understand all of these things. But they still happened. And truth be told, that's probably more of who we are. Some of the arguments are, you just need a coach who will understand that Americans want to see goal scoring. Like that gets that that's what America wants out of soccer. Well, to be fair, every soccer fan wants to see goal scoring. That's not unique to Americans. We have this we're different. We want to see goals. Yeah. That's different, all right. You nailed it. Everyone wants to see goals. It's just that, much like at every other level of soccer, sometimes a coach recognizes we would probably be outclassed by this opponent. Maybe let's try to change the way that we play a little bit. Play for a counter. Obviously, that's what they did against England in the World Cup. You really think that if they tried to run and shoot with England, that would have worked out well for them?
You never know.
Yeah, sure.
Didn't work for anybody else, but maybe.
Yeah, again.
Hey, you know.
But it might work for us. Might. Tobias. It just might work. I just blew myself. I don't really have a whole lot else to say about it, man. I really don't. I'm not going to be the guy that I can't break down all the players and tell you who's good enough and tell you. I got to leave that for an expert. Again, there's a lot of people that want you to believe that they are good enough at this, that they can do that. I am not going to pretend like I have that level of knowledge that I could confidently break down all of the players. Truth be told, none of them stood out to me. I mean, I thought Pulisic had his moments, but even he was like the thing that he was bitching about late in the match when they were down 1-0 and he just didn't get a clean shot off and he's trying to scream and yell at the refs.
Soccer, I feel like.
Yeah.
Almost. Like,
stop. Like you're pissed off because you're about to be eliminated from the tournament. The thing where the ref wouldn't shake Pulisic's hand after the match, on the list of embarrassing things from last night, it doesn't even come in like the top 3. I mean, there's so much embarrassing about that display. Everything about this tournament. I know Kansas City is a great soccer town, right? Like I think if I remember correctly, they have 2 different soccer-specific stadiums for the men's and women's pro teams. They love soccer in Kansas City, although I think at least one of them is in Kansas City, Kansas, not in Kansas City, Missouri. But apparently the Chiefs also might be moving to Kansas at some point. It's a weird bit.
Kansas City's not in Kansas?
There is a Kansas City in Kansas.
Half of it?
No, there's 2 different Kansas Cities.
There's a Kansas City.
Did you? Oh, God.
There's a Kansas City strictly in Kansas?
Yes, there is another
Not near Kansas City?
Well, I think they're very close to each other. But there is a Kansas City, Kansas, and a Kansas City, Missouri. Kansas City, Missouri is the one that we know is Kansas City, obviously, where like the Jazz Museum is and the Negro League Museum, and currently where the Royals and the Chiefs play. But because they didn't pass the public money thing on the vote, now Kansas is trying to lure away the Chiefs and the Royals to play in Kansas City, Kansas, where I know the men's soccer stadium is.
It's like almost like a small neighborhood, basically?
I don't know how big. I could not tell you how big Kansas City can. I do not. Believe it or not, this is not my area of expertise. Lots of areas of expertise. I can do heavy breakdowns on many topics, but I cannot break down the topic of. Also, that's where the racetrack is in Kansas City, Kansas. It is the 3rd most populous city in the state of Kansas. The population of the city is 156,000. It is one of the 4 principal cities in the Kansas City metropolitan area. So there you go. Got all that for you. Anyway.
So what's Topeka? What, Wichita?
Wichita is probably the most populous.
Okay.
Yeah, in Kansas. I would assume that Topeka's second, but I also don't. Dog. I don't know these things. This is not my area.
This wasn't on trivia last night?
Could be. No. Oh, we had a rough. Hang on a second. We finished in second. It's not like we had a terrible night, but we finished in second. There was one round of sports questions. Answer the following questions about Hall of Famers Jerry West and Willie Mays, who passed away last month. 1. What college did Jerry West attend and play basketball?
UCLA?
Famously, I think everybody knows, it was named after him.
The college was?
It's a joke. But.
Okay. West. I don't know. What? He went to West Virginia?
Yes, he did.
Okay.
Everybody knows
Good.
He went to West Virginia. Number 2. Which NBA team did Jerry West take over as general manager from 2002 to 2007?
The Lakers.
No.
The Celtics.
No.
The Pacers.
No. Wow. I was torn between 2 teams, that he was definitely the general manager of both of them, and I couldn't decide which one of them I wanted to go with, and I ultimately picked the wrong one, and I was very disappointed. It was not the Spurs.
I mean, I guess I just have no idea. The Supersonics.
I was torn between the Warriors and the Grizzlies, and I went with the Warriors, and it was the Grizzlies. It was the Grizzlies was the correct answer from 2002 to 2007. Willie Mays' famous over-the-shoulder catch at the Polo Grounds was during which World Series?
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, I didn't.
56.
You were close.
7.
54.
54.
54. We got that one wrong as well. And number 4, we did get, of course, after leaving the San Francisco Giants, which team did Mays finish his career with?
He went back to the Mets.
Yes, correct.
I guess not back, but
yeah, he went back to New York.
He went to the Mets
to play for the Mets. Yes. So, in fairness, you would have gotten one.
Okay.
Like,
Sweet.
you wouldn't have gone over.
No.
We only got 2, which was quite disappointing.
I could start every day in Major League Baseball.
Quite disappointing. I did get the other one that was sports adjacent was what is the nickname? What is the state nickname of Wisconsin? It's not America's Dairyland.
The cheese state, the cheesehead state.
It is not the Cheesehead State.
The Badger state.
The Badger State.
It is. Darn it! I was gonna
It
between
is
one of those two.
Sports adjacent. So I got that one. I also got some random ones. Like there was a question about public domain that I got last night. There was one like, what actress has appeared in the most Coen Brothers movies with 7? And I remember because we have a movie guy on our team,
Right.
our friend Brad, and he was struggling. Like he was just staring at the screen. I'm like, okay, so let's start talking about women that have been in Coen Brothers movies. Is it Julianne Moore? And he's furious. No. Is it Frances McDormand? No. 7. And then he keeps staring at the screen for a little while. And somebody says, dude, you know how stupid I am? I looked up at the screen because the way the question was written, it said, at 7, she has appeared in the most Coen Brother. And this and it was my cousin, read it and thought that meant at 7 years old.
Oh, wow. Yeah,
right? That's
I
the
can
way.
see.
And then all of a sudden, Brad's like, oh. Like, clearly he thought the exact same thing. And then he says, oh, dude, it's Frances McDormand. I'm like, you asshole.
Well, you got it right. So
we did get it right.
So who cares?
We did get it right.
Doesn't matter how you arrive there.
I guess that's true.
You got it.
I guess that's correct. But yeah, second place. I don't think we've won yet this season. It's been a lot of seconds.
You've had a lot of
seconds.
Some top 2, top 3 finishes.
It's been a rough go.
Is it early or no?
I don't know.
I don't know.
Couldn't possibly. I didn't even show up for the play. We won going away last season. I didn't show up for the playoffs.
Yeah.
I just don't. I'm not nearly
two
committed.
playoffs a year, or is it always only?
I think it's like 4 seasons. I think every season.
Oh, okay.
Is its own season.
Winter,
I think there's
spring.
winter, spring, summer, fall. I think.
Okay, so you should be pretty early in the summer season.
Truth be told, man, it's not. Whatever. I just show up. I'm just here so I don't.
It seems like you care.
No, I have a good time. I have a very good time, but I don't care that much about like being the World Series champion. It's just not going to be a thing.
And that's kind of the issue, actually. That's
right. I know. I'm not. I don't have that.
Seems like you're not.
I don't have that dog in me. Unlike Jeremy Kahn, who's about to have 5 dogs in him. So he's got that going
5
for
Mayo
himself.
dogs.
5 Mayo dogs specifically. Yes, that is correct. All right. Oriole. The good news yesterday, Corbin Burns was activated off the paternity list, so presumably that means he'll be able to start tomorrow. And then it's just as we talked about ad nauseum yesterday without being able to give an answer until Brandon Hyde tells you something. It's a question of whether or not they go with a 5 or a 6 man. What game do they intend to have Dean Kramer start? I would think they want to do everything in their power to manipulate and make sure. They definitely want to make sure they get 3 more Burns starts before the break. There's no doubt in my mind. The only question, I think, would be if Corbin Burns, and you would like to hope that this is a conversation that he can have with Bruce Bochy, maybe even had it over the weekend, Brandon Hyde. Like, hey, Bruce, what are you leaning as far as who starts the All-Star game? Have you heard from Scooble? I would think that it's a 2-horse race, right, between Scooble and, like, obviously at one point Luis Heel would have been in that conversation, but he's out of the conversation at this point. I would think that that's what you're down to, essentially. Is there anybody else I'm not thinking of that would be in the conversation to start the All-Star game?
Maybe one of the Mariners, like, is Logan Gilbert been pitching really well? Like, maybe.
No, that's not.
Seth Lugo obviously
he's really
American
good.
Or he's the MLB wins leader.
Crochet might be the only All-Star for the White Sox, so I don't know. But I still feel like it's Scooble and Burns have separated themselves. I was looking at Cy Young odds because I did that. Have you seen, like...
I have not looked at the odds recently.
Okay, so the Cy Young odds are Scooble plus 190, Burns plus 240.
That's right. You did mention that yesterday.
And Crochet then at plus 800. So, like, in that world, they've separated themselves.
Where's Seth Lugo? I mean, I guess Lugo's not going to win.
19-1.
But he's like he has the lowest ERA among starting pitchers in baseball right now. He's got the most wins.
Yeah.
The Royals are currently in the playoffs, right? Yeah, like
I don't. Well, 1 wins is nonsense.
I know.
That doesn't.
I know,
mean,
but
that
I mean, if he
means
gets to 20
nothing.
wins, like
That's not. It still means nothing. Like,
yeah, but 20 wins, like we don't see it.
Yeah, in 20 years ago, that would have mattered. In fact, 20 years ago, that would have won you the Cy Young Award.
And if he keeps his ERA around 2.17,
I think there's a famous year where like did Bartolo Colon win the Cy Young Award one year simply because he won a bunch of games. Man, there is a famous example of this that like numbers people always go to.
He won 05?
Try to see if you can pull up the 05. Is that when he won?
I believe so. Wait, hold on, I just had it. His Cy Young, it was 05.
Okay, try to pull up the 2005 American League pitching leaders and give me his numbers, and then maybe somebody else had spectacularly better numbers but just didn't win enough games. And that's why we look back and it's kind of laughable now.
Let's see. Johan Santana. Hold on, why am I not actually seeing his stats? Kevin Millwood had a 2.86 ERA. Cologne had a 3.48. And then, Cologne won 21 games. Yeah. What Garland is this? This is John Garland won 18 games.
Well, he's got that going for him.
Cliff Lee won 18 games.
Johan so the pitching WAR leaders that year.
Yeah, Johan Santana.
Santana was 7.2, Randy Johnson 5.8. Here's who doesn't come up in the top 10.
Mariano Rivera had a higher
Bartolo
WAR.
Colon's name does not come up in the top 10. I don't know where we are with this season in pitching WAR leaders. Let me see if I can pull that up. Lugo is first for what it's worth.
Is he?
Yep.
Okay.
And in fairness, Burns isn't until 9th. So it's Lugo, Crochet, Skubal, Fetty. So maybe Burns isn't even in the conversation.
Fetty's above.
Fetty is 4th.
Wow.
Tyler Anderson, by the way, the potential trade target, 5th. Then Blanco, Houck, Reagans, and Burns are tied. Actually, Burns is tied for 8th at 2.6. Again, that's not the only statistic that matters, but and this is B WAR. This is Baseball Reference WAR. I don't know what the Fangraphs WAR is. I guess I could do that. What are we doing here, huh? Fangraphs pitching WAR leaders. F WAR is don't give me. I don't want hitters. I want pitchers. Damn it.
You can do it.
Garrett Crochet at 3.7.
Oh, okay.
Tanner Houck is 2nd.
Maybe Tanner Houck stars.
Maybe. By the way, it also could be that it's political too, right? Like, does somebody care about this? Does one of these guys particularly care about being the starting pitcher in the All-Star game, whereas other guys just simply don't?
They should.
It might very well be that like he talks to the managers, Bochy, and ultimately decides that like Crochet starts the All-Star game because his team isn't in it, right? Like. His team isn't.
Why did John Means start the All-Star game in 2019?
That's a great question. Why didn't he start the All-Star game? But look, man, I don't know what the decision will be. By the way, for F WAR, it's Crochet, Houck, Reagans. These are a bunch of NL guys. Sorry, Skubal, Lugo, Kirby.
What number are they at?
Kirby's at 2.5.
Okay.
Then Burns at 2.4.
So F WAR is a little bit, I guess, stricter. And
appears to be that case. Yes. Look, man, I would think they want to try to get, no matter what, you want to try to get 3 starts for Burns, and ideally 3 starts for Burns, and then he can start the opener coming out of the All-Star break. That would be spectacular if you can make it work that way. To do like, if he were to start Tuesday, Sunday, Saturday, not Tuesday, Wednesday. I guess he couldn't do Wednesday, Sunday. I guess it would have to be Wednesday, Tuesday, Sunday. Yeah. And that's off. I mean, it's asking a lot for him to turn around and start again that Friday, but we talked about that yesterday. It's not unprecedented, and it just really at that point depends if he pitches in the All-Star game or not, probably. If he's pitching in the All-Star game, you probably need to let him start Saturday, but that's okay. You can let Grayson Rodriguez start Friday. The moral of the story is get 3 Corbin Burns starts between now and then. We'll figure out how it lines up. Tonight, we know Grayson Rodriguez is pitching for the Orioles as they open up their series in Seattle. That's what we know Thank you for attending my TED Talk. It is George Kirby, of course, going for the Mariners, as the Mariners do send both Kirby and Gilbert the next 2 nights. So
Awesome. And Bryce Miller, I think, on Thursday.
It is Bryce Miller on Thursday. So,
hey.
Go get him, boys.
Of course, Luis Castillo's having a bad year, so we don't see him. And
yeah.
Bad's a strong word, but it's a down year.
Right, down year. Down year is a very good way of saying it.
Speaking of down years, Zach Greinke lost 17 games in 2005.
How about that? What were his numbers? What were the numbers that mattered?
Give me 1 second.
Yeah, I mean, like if you told me he lost 17 games with a 3.4 ERA, then
he started 33 games and he had a 5.8 ERA.
Yeah, okay. Yes, he had a definitively rough season.
They just kept trotting him out there.
Yeah. Well, it worked out.
That was after finishing 4th in Rookie of the Year the year before.
He was really good, no doubt. All right, we come back in. We're going to talk some Wimbledon. We're going to talk some football. Our buddy Gregg Rosenthal, NFL Network, NFL.com, will check in with us. Don't forget, if you missed it, Stan the Fan Charles, Ross Grimsley, Luke Jackson got together yesterday. Facebook.com/PressBoxSports. Click on the videos tab. Go to YouTube.com/PressBoxOnline or PressBoxOnline.com/video. It is a Tuesday edition of Glenn Clark Radio.
Escape to Ocean City, Maryland, and discover a place that just feels lighter, where every day feels like Saturday and French fries are a food group, where flip-flops are always in fashion and seafood is always in season, where the boardwalk is bustling and the beach is right outside your door, where you can rise with the tide and feel like a kid again. Ocean City, Maryland, somewhere to smile about. Book your trip at OCOcean.com.
Whether your focus is luxury and comfort, convenience and technologically advanced connectivity, or sporty performance and aggressive styling, we've got the perfect Highlander for you. Check out buyatoyota.com for deals on new Highlanders from your local Toyota dealer today.
The ultimate fan experience awaits you at Sports and Social Maryland. See how we're raising the sports bar with our massive 100-foot media wall featuring 40 HD TVs and a 47-foot big screen. Bet on your favorite teams and this year's biggest events at the FanDuel Sportsbook while enjoying your favorite beers and cocktails, plus our delicious takes on bar food classics. Visit Sports and Social at Live Casino and Hotel Maryland at Arundel Mills. Must be 21. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER.
Discover one of Baltimore's hidden gems at Guilford Hall Brewery. Enjoy dinner in our spacious brew pub, sip a signature cocktail in our outdoor dog-friendly beer garden, or take a tour of our brewery. Discover your new favorite local craft beer. From crisp lagers to hoppy ales, there's something for everyone to enjoy. Pair your brew with delicious appetizers and entrees. There are options for the whole family, but you have to try our fan-favorite giant pretzel. Guilford Hall Brewery, where every sip is a celebration. Visit us online at guilfordhall.com.
The drug scene in Maryland is changing. Fentanyl and xylazine are being added to street drugs, and you may not even know it. Xylazine is not even intended for humans, and fentanyl is an opioid 50 times stronger than heroin and contributed to over 80% of overdose deaths in our state. Anyone who uses drugs, even occasionally, is at risk of overdose. To learn more, visit stopoverdose.maryland.gov or call or text 988.
The days are getting hotter, and so are your Baltimore Orioles. Hi, I'm Paul Valley, and you can join me and Ryan Blake on the Bat-Around every Saturday at 10 a.m. as the Orioles march towards another postseason berth. With a Cy Young candidate in the rotation and multiple MVP candidates in the lineup, this might be the most well-equipped Orioles team to end a decades-long World Series drought. From the Midsummer Classic to the trade deadline and beyond, Ryan and I will be with you through the dog days of summer and into those crisp fall nights. So tune into the Bat-Around every Saturday starting at 10 a.m. right here with PressBox.
Driving in Maryland? Did you know an Easy Pass from DriveEasyMD.com can save you time and money? Of course you did, because you are a thrifty driver. An antenna reads your Easy Pass transponder and automatically deducts the toll from your Easy Pass account. There, you just saved money with Easy Pass, all without slowing or receiving a notice in the mail. Well done, thrifty driver, well done. Get your Easy Pass at DriveEasyMD.com.
Contrary to what some people believe, I actually like this guy. when he sleeps. Glenn Clark, Talking Sports.
All right, back in here on GCRs. Continue along on a Tuesday edition of the program, getting ready for the start of the series between the Orioles and the Mariners tonight, and obviously lamenting, of course, the 1-0 loss for the U.S. last night that eliminated them from Copa America. Didn't matter ultimately. By the way, it is the only thing about last night is that like the offside thing would not have made a difference. They needed to win. That would have only made it a scoreless draw. Didn't help. Didn't help. It helped for that like second when Bolivia tied things up with Panama, and you're like, all you need to do is keep it scoreless. But that didn't end up being the case. So it is what it is. All right, you know that the only thing I actually care about right now is the fact that Wimbledon is underway. It started yesterday. The American men have not looked great. But, we've been saying that. It's much like soccer, I guess, in that way. We got that thing in common. Joining us now, I guess you know him for football reasons, NFL Network, NFL.com, Around the NFL. Also, of course, the ill-fated but legendary Courts of Thunder podcast. He is our buddy Gregg Rosenthal, and he's back with us now here on GCR. What's up, pal? How are you?
Not ill-fated, much beloved, and I had a lot of fun doing our tennis podcast, and this is just an extension of it. And, the American men, they're not doing so bad. Tommy Paul won a big tournament 2 weeks ago. Ben Shelton's about to win a match. We love Ben Shelton, Glenn.
We love Ben Shelton when he's got to go 5 sets. He's got to go 5 sets in his opening round. Like Francis Tiafoe had to go 5 sets in his opening round match.
Hey, he won.
Yeah.
He did something he never did before, which is come back from 2 sets, so sowed a little fight in what's been a bad year. And Shelton's 21 years old.
Yeah.
We don't grow up in the U.S. or really anyone. No one grows up playing on grass. So sometimes it takes the big guys a little while. I think he could be a contender at Wimbledon someday, but he's too young for it.
I hope you're right, but Seb Quarter's trying to lose today, like just rough. All right.
Well, focus on the women then. Focus on the women.
Yeah, right. That's exactly what we should do. Well, so that's part of the reason why I wanted you to come on is you are trying to sell me on this is Coco Gauff's tournament to win.
I believe that. I mean, I would take the field over Coco Gauff,
right?
But I would pick Coco Gauff of any woman to win this tournament. Now, I said this to you before the top seed in her side of the draw, Aryna Sabalenka, withdrew. So that was not even part of the equation. But I think if you just watch Coco this year, I think she's been playing well. I think she played well in the clay. She's serving well. I think she played well at the French Open. She's very comfortable on grass. I just like where her mindset is right now. And then it's also the field. Iga Swiatek, the dominant world number 1, has never made it past the quarterfinals at Wimbledon.
Yep.
Elena Rybakina, who's won Wimbledon, has barely can make it through a tournament without having medical problems, health, sickness, all this. Sabalenka, we know, is out now. And I just have a feeling Gauff is in a really good mental and physical place right now, and she can go win this tournament.
And obviously has had a lot of success at Wimbledon, like some of the big, it was a big coming out party, right? It was at Wimbledon years ago. I'm not ready to say to myself, like, yeah, this is the moment, but, like, I absolutely understand your argument, and I do think that it's complicated because I think there are a lot of people that would say, right, but, like, Iga Swiatek looks like the best player in the world. It is just very unique that it has not translated to Wimbledon. And I think a lot of people would say inevitably it's going to, right? Like it's only a matter of time. You can't be this dominant a player and continue to have that. But until proven, we can't accept it as fact that it's going to happen that way.
And the tennis schedule is so weird. You have to play so many tournaments. And for Iga, she, for the first time ever, won the 3 major clay courts in a row, which are 2 weeks apiece,
right.
Rome, Madrid, and the French Open. And so you got to have some breaks in your schedule. And so she literally skips the grass season. And if she was even in Coco's side of the draw, I would probably feel different. In tennis, there's a term called a pigeon, which is just like if there's one player that just always knocks out another player every time, he or she is your pigeon. And Coco Gauff is unfortunately Iga's pigeon, and she just knocks her out every time. But she wouldn't have to play Iga till the finals, And just my gut is that someone will knock out Iga for her in the meantime.
I'm willing to listen, right? Like, I am willing to buy into this possibility, and I don't think it's crazy. I guess at that point, if, however, it was a final between Iga and Coco, I certainly would favor Iga in that situation, because then by that point she'd be in form on grass, and if she's in form on grass, I would like her in, just about any circumstance that she's playing. What about your girl? How you feeling? Obviously, in hindsight, we talked about it during the French. Naomi was the one that gave Iga the by far the best test of the French Open. It just happened to be early. How are you feeling about where Naomi is in this process of trying to get back to her top form?
Well, that was a really encouraging day. She, got a little tight at the end, or else she would have beaten Iga. And I thought they should have given her the consolation prize, the runner-up trophy for that tournament, because she played the best match other than Iga in that tournament. The problem is she's a little like Iga, and at least in the past, Naomi, even when she was at her best, was not winning at all on grass. The footwork, the ball getting on her so quickly. She's said she's really determined to get better on every surface. She got through her first round yesterday, but it wasn't easy. She has a tough second round against someone we've enjoyed watching, Emma Navarro. So that is a very fun second round match, and they're putting it on center court. So I tend to trust Naomi when they put her in a big spot like that, and I think she could make a run, but I don't feel like she's a contender for the title. But she could make fourth round, quarterfinal, something like that. I could see that.
We're chatting with Gregg Rosenthal here on GCR. So on the men's side of things, it's another one of these weird tournaments where it's so much about the guys that aren't playing, right? Like Rafa's not there. Now we know Andy Murray's not playing in what we thought was going to be his final, and I guess he's still going to play the doubles, so it can still be his final Wimbledon. And I think there are still people that are coming to grips with the idea that the dominant players, the ones that are going to have the best chance to win the slams, are Alcaraz and Sinner. That's where we are now. It is we've moved. You and I used to talk about, will we ever get to the next generation? Well, we're here now. It is officially now the moment for the next generation. It's just who's really going to be a part of that.
Right, and it took so long that they waited it out so where we have two guys who are more than worthy of holding this mantle. I think men's tennis is lucky that Sinner and Alcaraz is kind of developed enough to the point where they are going to be two greats. Now, I don't think they're going to be as great as the other greats, but they're going to win. They're both going to win a bunch of Grand Slams, and they're going to be part of our lives for the next decade plus. Now, you say that as a certain seven-time champion or eight-time champion is playing on center court right now and just won a set 6-1 and is in the much easier side of the draw because Alcaraz lost a bunch of points because he didn't defend his title in Queens 2 weeks ago. Djokovic is the 2 seed, and that means that Alcaraz and Sinner would have to play in the semis, and I really like Djokovic's side of the draw, and if he's healthy enough, he's the favorite to make it to the finals in my mind.
But that is a huge qualifier if he's healthy enough. That is.
Well, he just won a set 6-1. I don't know.
Understand that, but that's the first match in the course of having to play every 2 days for 2 weeks. You can look really healthy on the first day, and then we got to revisit that as you get to the weekend.
Sure, but his draw I thought was really
I do
favorable.
Agree with that. Yeah.
That he has no one good in the first 3 rounds. Then, there's Hurkacz is over there, who's a good grass court player. There's someone else in the 4th round. Oh, Tommy Paul's Alcaraz's. I'm forgetting who is in the 4th round, but he's got some tougher matches once you get to the 4th round. But I think he'll be able to work his way into the tournament. And honestly, if I had to pick one person to win this tournament, I think I'd take Djokovic, just because the other two guys have it. They're on the other side of the draw, and winning 2 in a row is a really hard thing to do for Alcaraz.
Yes, and he's made it, obviously it was quite adventurous even at the end of the French, right? God, did he make that difficult on himself. I do still ultimately think he is the best player in the world, right? And so I'm not going to end up being surprised, and I think a lot has been made about him not having his coach in Australia, and that did seem to play a role for him, particularly as someone who does make things adventurous for himself. I probably, because of that, still have to default to the idea that it is always Alcaraz that's the one to beat when we get to these types of events. But I understand your argument of, hey, but you're better off not having to play the other best player in the world in the semifinals if you're trying to win this thing.
Well, or the guy that won it 4 straight times and then made the finals, and it took a superhuman effort to beat him last year.
Yes.
I guess I'm just afraid. I'm not ready to. If Novak Djokovic was going to win like one more Grand Slam in the rest of his life, this feels like it might be it. And and for our listeners that don't know, Jannik Sinner is the number 1 player in the world and has played like it all year. So it's a really, if we were going to say it, like right now, I feel like they are the 3 favorites, and they're well ahead of the pack as long as Djokovic is healthy.
So completely agreed. I think the fascinating part of the conversation, and you and I talked about this, and we used other names and we discussed it, and it was who of the group that was next gen before we got to Alcaraz and Sinner, right? That group of, Medvedev, and at the time it was Thiem, obviously Tsitsipas, and I loathe to say it, but Zverev, obviously. Who of that group is really going to, Rublev, I guess, is in that kind, although he's more of the next gen. Who of that group is legitimately going to end up being in this conversation versus just being the guys that are there to lose in the end to the guys that are really part of the conversation?
At this tournament, I don't know if anyone is. Medvedev on a hard court, certainly.
Yep.
And I actually, if I had to pick like a 4th favorite here, Hubie Hurkacz has good results on grass, and he's just one of those big servers that he, even in the Halle final 2 weeks ago, Sinner beat him 7-6, 7-6, but he's just like got to be in those finals. He's in his prime, and he could just be one of those random guys that you're like, wait, why on Wimbledon Sunday am I watching Alcaraz Hurkacz of all people? But I think he could be in there, but I think he'd probably be in there to lose, to your point.
Yeah, that's the sense that I have too. That's the sense of where I am. And although I do still think that, unfortunately, Zverev is going to be a factor on hard courts and on clay. I think that's the reality.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
I think that Tsitsipas could still be a factor on clay, although he has really not wanted to prove that. He has done
everything. The problem is, if no one's good on grass, then everyone's good on grass.
That's
no
true. Everybody,
except for Djokovic.
Berrettini was the one that was supposed to be, dominant on grass for years to come, and yet, he's just never been able to stay healthy enough to follow that up and prove that he can stay in the conversation. So I can't.
Well, he's on center court tomorrow. Not to cut you off, but that is, if he was not in Sinner's draw, he could have gone far. But that is a really big test for Sinner tomorrow. We've got 2 really good second-round matches on the men's side there, and that's one of them.
All right. I'm supposed to say something about football here, but I just don't care right now. I'm just so not in the mood, man. I'll give you – all right, let me present it to you this way. This is the topic I keep asking people right now. The Ravens lost a lot this offseason. They lost their defensive coordinator. They lost an inside linebacker. They lost their top edge rusher. They lost one of their 3 qualified wide receivers. They lost 60% of their starting offensive line. And yet when you bring those topics up, and I'm saying on the record, off the record, with personnel people that I've talked to about this all off season long, I get largely the same response back, which is, yeah, they're the Ravens. They're going to be fine. All they do is find more talent. And specifically, I bring it up about the offensive line. Right? We should be concerned about losing 3 out of 5 offensive line starters. And I get such an indifferent, yeah, I don't know. They find offensive linemen. That's what they are. That's who I trust that the guys they're putting out there are guys that can play. Is that too dismissive of the totality of everything the Ravens have lost this offseason?
I think it is too dismissive. I'm with you. Now, I kind of go into every season thinking the Ravens lost a lot. I really think it's quietly happened since Acosta took over that they've really turned over this roster a lot and lost a lot of good free agents every year. And those personnel people are right. They do always find answers and they make up for it. But I don't need to tell Ravens fans that there's some seasons where they're 1 seeds and Lamar wins the MVP, and there's some seasons where they're fighting to get into the playoffs and they're like the 6th seed or they don't make, you know what I mean? And so there are 2 outcomes here, and now you could say that those were related to Lamar's injuries,
right.
But that's always a possibility. I am a little concerned because I think it's line play on both sides, and that's where you start. And then losing, half the league hired Ravens defensive coaches to take over. The secondary also needs to be turned over. Humphrey's getting older a little. And so I think they'll find answers, but I think it's fair to expect a little bit of a step back to start the season, and then hopefully they get that patented Ravens kick at the end of the year.
And I don't know how much of it is mitigated by, but Derrick Henry can run behind. He's literally run behind the worst offensive line in football. So, like, if you're the third worst, that's an upgrade, right? Like, I don't know.
No,
how
they'll
much...
be better than that. Now, I do have faith that system, Todd Monken, Roddy Stanley's talking a good game in terms of being healthier. Like, he'll have a better line to run in front of, and I do trust the scheme overall. It's just the overall talent. Like, it's not a great group of weapons for Lamar either.
I guess that, the only way that's mitigated is if, like, Isaiah Likely is as good. If somehow both Mark Andrews can be on the field and Isaiah Likely can be on the field, and Isaiah Likely can still be as good as he was when Mark Andrews was off the field, then that makes up for the fact that I largely agree with you. Like, there's nothing, like, they have one wide receiver that you feel good about going into the season. That's it. So they almost need both of those tight ends to be really good at the same time.
Right, and if the running game is, and I thought Henry ran well last year, if the running game is closer to peak form, and Lamar obviously helps that enormously, that makes all the difference in the world. And I did find that the incredible amount of Rashad Bateman support, love, hype from like day one of the offseason, and then they followed it up with a contract extension, which either is going to look bizarre or great, depending on how the season goes, was a very surprising offseason story for me.
Yeah.
But the Ravens, they believe in him. They really do believe in him because they showed it with some money.
It's a weird thing, Greg. Like, and I've said this a lot this offseason. Like, I've always thought that Rashad Bateman was still more a part of the solution than a part of the problem. I think it's been very unique with, and I get there have been a lot of injuries, and that has really hurt him. But when he's been on the field, it's not – Rashad Perriman didn't catch the football, right? That's not Rashad Bateman's problem, isn't that he doesn't catch the football. I don't know why. I tried talking to him about it a couple of weeks ago. Like, there's just not been the connection between he and Lamar Jackson. But when you watch the film, he is open constantly. Like, he is constantly winning routes and open, and it's just the ball isn't coming his way for whatever reason. So I would feel differently about Rashad Bateman if it was the ball was being thrown his way and he wasn't catching the football. Then I'd say this is, he's a part of the problem. But I can't go there because he really does win routes and one-on-one matchups and gets open, and the ball just doesn't end up coming to him for some reason. So they got to fix that part of it. Like, if that continues, it doesn't help. Like, there's no way of getting around it. But if they can fix that part, I still think he can be part of the solution somehow. All right, buddy. Can I plug anything for you, or what's going on in your world?
No, I'm enjoying this Wimbledon. We'll be getting back to the football of it soon enough. I feel like July 4th is the last time to relax, and then we're back at it.
All right. I love you, pal. Enjoy this. I know we'll be texting each other never ending for the next couple of weeks. Always appreciate you, buddy. Thanks for doing it.
Looking forward to it, Glenn. See ya.
Thanks, pal. It's Gregg Rosenthal with us here on GCR. Always appreciate him taking the time for us. And I'm trying to think of, like, I can't make the compel. This is not going to be this Wimbledon, if you're not a tennis fan like I am, this one's not likely going to be for the casuals. If Coco Gauff does make a run to the final, that will pull in casuals, right?
It'll help when Sophia Kenin knocks off Iga today.
Yeah, I mean, what a moment that would be. You got some action on that? Because that
I think I might have to.
That is not a good bet. That is a terrible,
but she's like plus 1,000. So.
It's a terrible bet.
Plus
Sophia
1,000.
Kenin post winning the Australian Open. It's one of the.
Disappointing. Really,
we'll never
really
understand
sad.
that story. And I know that was an issue with her father and a whole thing, but like, it is a wild story. This is just not likely unless you have been captivated as a casual by Alcaraz and Sinner and the possibility of getting that in the semifinal. This is not going to be a Wimbledon for the casuals. This will be a Wimbledon for more of the hardcore tennis fans. And then we'll see if Djokovic and Gauff are playing on championship weekend, and those two obviously would draw more of the casuals in. Hour number 1 of today's show is in the books. It was also brought to you by Live Casino and Hotel, the best place to watch all of the big events, like the tennis, like the soccer, the home run derby, all of these things. The best place to watch it is in Sports and Social at Live Casino and Hotel, with the awesome giant media screen, incredible atmosphere, great food and drinks. And don't forget that Live Casino Rewards members have the opportunity to earn discounts on cash and credit purchases at the casino. Join the Live Casino Rewards Club online or in person at Live today. See complete details at livecasinohotel.com. All right, let's get back into some Orioles conversation. This is our friend, and he is, of course, the host of Locked On Orioles. He's Connor Newcomb, and he's with us this morning on GCR. Connor, what's going on, buddy? How are you?
I am fantastic, Glenn. How are you?
Everything is good, man. I am a couple of things, broader topics that I have been talking about a lot recently. I wrote about it yesterday for Pressbox. I hate using the word untouchable because the immediate return, no one's actually untouchable, because someone would say to you, really, you think Gunnar Henderson's untouchable? What if the Dodgers said, you can have Ohtani and Betts, and we'll pay their entirety of the contract? But, of course, that's obviously a logical fallacy, so untouchable is within context. So within the context of trades that could actually be made, where are you with who is actually untouchable for the Baltimore Orioles as they try to acquire the pitching help they need?
Yeah, I think it's a good way to put it, right? Untouchable doesn't actually mean untouchable. Like, if someone had an absurd offer that netted them Jackson Holiday and netted the Orioles, 2 aces to add to this rotation, then yeah, of course, that's the deal you might make. But that's never going to happen. Holiday is not being traded. And I don't think at this point Samuel Basallo or Kobe Mayo are being traded. It would have to be someone to slot right next to Corbin Burns that you could get. And I think that's more of that guy's just not going to be available at this year's trade deadline. And so I don't even think the Orioles will consider a deal like that. And then one more guy who I think is untouchable for a different reason right now is Heston Kjerstad. Not because of his overall prospect pedigree, but because if you are a team in first place fighting in a division and you're less than a month away from the trade deadline, I don't think you can trade from the guy who's been your best hitter over the last week. Now, maybe if he goes into a slump, that's a little bit different, but that's a different level of untouchable that Kobe Mayo or Basallo are. But I do think it would be a bad look if 5 days from now the Orioles dealt Kjerstad to get a starting pitcher.
So it's semantics, right? Like when we have these conversations, I can't label Kjerstad as untouchable, right? But I know what you're saying, and it sort of goes in. If somebody's helping you be in this position, how can you weaken that thinking that it strengthens something else? I can't say he's untouchable because I do think that at some point, if you can acquire, insert pitcher's name here, and I would also put Basallo in this conversation. Skubal to me, and I get that this is a fascinating concept because we're talking about someone who's had multiple Tommy John surgeries, but Skubal to me looks like the only guy of this group that could both be the answer for the rest of this season that we're not sure that Garrett Crochet can be, and potentially be a top-ish of the rotation pitcher for the next couple of years as well. So if it required Basallo specifically to do a Skubal deal, I don't think I could balk at that because the timeline for Basallo is you're not going to have a full season of him until 2026.
I would agree with that. I think where I come from is I can't imagine the Tigers trading Tarik Skubal right now. I get that they're mostly out of it. They were playing good baseball for like the first month and a half, at least good baseball compared to the recent Detroit Tigers. But I just think they feel they're close enough and they have so many years left of Skubal that it would take the world for them to even consider it. And I also think if they did it, it would be more of an off-season kind of deal. If he was available, though, that is where those guys like Kobe Mayo and Basallo come back into the conversation for me, because Skubal is a guy that I've been in love with for years now, watching him pitch. He is finally healthy. He is pitching better than he ever has. And as you mentioned, he's got a lot of years left where it's not just a 2024 guy. If he were available at all, Kobe Mayo, Samuel Basallo, like put them in the conversations. I just think looking at this deadline, the combination of injuries across the board and so many teams still thinking they're in it or not wanting to go full fire sale because, you look at the National League and there are terrible teams that are 3 games out of a playoff spot. I don't think they're going to tear it all down. I think that's going to make for not many true. I don't think there's going to be a number 1 traded at this deadline. I don't think anybody is going to get a guy at this deadline who's going to start game 1 of a playoff series, and nobody may even get somebody who starts game 2 of a playoff series. That's how little talent I think is going to be moved at the deadline. And that's why I say, like, there might not even be anybody out there who's worth even considering giving up a guy like Mayo or Basayo.
So understand all of that. It's funny because even in a Skubal situation, I still couldn't do Mayo. Like the Mayo thing to me is now too good, too close, and too right-handed. Like you don't have enough right-handed in the system to be dealing away the one right-handed bat that looks like it's legitimate. I can't. It almost gets into even the theater of the absurd conversations. I don't think I could entertain Mayo because of that.
That's fair. It's totally fair. I mean, that power is not something the Orioles have in a right-handed hitter in this entire system. And as you said, like, I think he's even closer than we think.
Right.
Like, this could be soon that he is in Baltimore.
Oh, it's very difficult to have the, like, Ramon Arias had 2 nice weeks, but, like, really legitimately, do you believe that Ramon Arias' roster spot is more valuable than it would be to have Coby Mayo on this team right now? And I don't know that. I've had so many questions about Mayo. Can Mayo really defensively play third base? And all you see is more and more highlights of Coby Mayo playing legitimate third base defense that make you say, well, maybe he really can, right? Like maybe that really is an option for him in a way that it was never actually an option for Ryan Mountcastle.
Yeah, I think for Mayo, the thing about the defense is the only thing that is not major league ready is the arm accuracy.
Right.
And you could argue that could be something that might be the easiest to switch because, like, he's got the cannon to get it over to first. There's some guys that don't have that. And it's just like, well, they can never play third base because they just aren't going to build the arm strength. The footwork's gotten better. The hands have gotten better. He just spikes it and sails it too often, and we know Ramon Arias is not the defender he was 2 years ago, but he's still a really, really solid third baseman. Jordan Westburg is really, really solid over there. You have to be confident that what Mayo gives you with the bat will outweigh more errors than you're used to at third base because it'll just happen. And I think that is the discussion happening right now in the warehouse.
I think that's interesting, too, in the context of how they just basically said, we're going to go ahead. This time around, we don't care where Heston Kjerstad is defensively. We're going to let him sink or swim in left field. Like and they would never say this, obviously, publicly, but it feels like that was a determined, all right, we'll bring him back up, and the hell with the first time around, we didn't want to step back defensively in left field, and I think that has a lot to do with everybody's frustrations about why Heston Kjerstad wasn't playing. It feels like this time they said, defense be damned, the offensive upside is too much for us to ignore. We're going to go ahead and let him run around in left field every day.
Yeah, and I think the other thing with Kjerstad was his defense got better, and credit to him, he got better out there. He looks better out there this year than he even did in AAA last year, which I think is a huge credit to him. Now, he's not Colton Cowser, he's not Cedric Mullins, but he's looking more and more like Anthony Santander, which is someone who, is not the best defensive outfielder, but you're okay if he's out there almost every day because he's going to run down balls and he might be replaced by a speedier guy in the 9th inning, but that's okay because you can take your bat for 8 innings and he can get you the lead to allow you to put that defensive replacement in. And hopefully that does happen for Mayo. And maybe something happens for Mayo similar to what happened with Kjerstad, where he gets that first chance and he doesn't play every day. And he doesn't play the field a whole lot. And then this offseason, he says, I am 95% of the way there. I just got to get that throwing accuracy better. And he comes into spring training next year better like Kjerstad did. And all of a sudden that chance, and it'll be a bigger chance for Mayo next year than it was for Kjerstad this year. But it definitely was a little bit of like Heston Kjerstad is not Colton Cowser defensively, but they looked at Cowser's recent struggles. They looked at Kjerstad's bat. And I think you're right. They said our defense around him is good enough that if he struggles, we can cover for him. That's the other question, though. If you're going to bring up Mayo, now, are you confident having Mayo at third and Kjerstad in left field at the same time? And that's, I think, another part of this conversation.
He is Connor Newcomb, Locked On Orioles, and he is with us here on GCR. So, Connor, let me go back to the pitching thing and on the top level of the conversation. You're saying that if somehow Skubal is on the market, and I get that's still a question, that you would be willing to pay a high price despite the 2 Tommy John surgeries. And then let's do also, where are you at with the Garrett Crochet conversation on the whole?
I am not as in on Garrett Crochet as many others are, and I think that is because I am deathly afraid that at best he will be a reliever in the postseason. And that's not bad. The Orioles need bullpen help. Before he got his Tommy John, he was a devastating reliever out of the White Sox bullpen. He's got incredible stuff from the left side. But you got to give up a lot to get Crochet because there's going to be other teams willing to pay a lot to get him as a starter for 2.5 years. You're going to have to pay starter price for a guy who's never pitched more than, I think, like 60 innings in the big leagues He's already shot through that as a starter this year. You're going to have to pay starter price for a guy who I think is going to be a reliever at the end of the season, and you're paying ace starter price because that's how good he's been this year. Yes, can you then build him up and have him be a starter the next 2 years? Absolutely, and he would help you immensely the next 2 seasons. But as much as we want David Rubenstein to write a $400 million check, I think chances are Corbin Burns is on another team next year, and the Orioles are still going to be without Kyle Bradish next year. And it's not that 2024 is all in, because there is so much talent that continues to be added to this team. But 2024 feels like a really good year to try and win the World Series, even with the injuries. And I just think with the amount you would give up for Crochet and the fact that I just think he's going to end up in the bullpen. He just does not have 180 plus innings in that arm right now, coming off injury when he's never done this before. I think Crochet is a guy that you hope doesn't get traded at this deadline because no one meets the White Sox prices. And then you deal for him in the offseason when you know, okay, we know how to build him up to have him be a starter all year for the next 2 years. I am just a little scared. Now, if you can get him for reliever price somehow, of course, go get him.
Yeah, but
it's going to be a starter price.
Correct.
And I don't think it's going to be worth it for this year specifically.
I agree. And let me correct this on Scuba. The second one was not a Tommy John, and I was just reminded of that. It was a different type of surgery.
He had some weird injury.
It was like it was still, I think, UCL though, but it wasn't specifically a Tommy John. But there's still, like, I don't know how much that makes you feel great about his injury history.
You know, if you get it twice, not many guys have had it a third time.
I brought that up.
You get it twice and your career's done, or you get it twice and you just keep pitching because it's so stable at this point. So there's 2 ways to look at it.
The fact that he's pitching this well post the second surgery, I know it's so funny. I remember who we were talking to about it yesterday. I'm like, what are the odds that lightning strikes a third time, right? Like, what really are the odds at that point? So I probably am inclined to agree with you. So then who is the most – I've been the guy on the Fetty bandwagon for – a couple of months at this point. To me, that's the best of the realistic options. That the price can be right, and he could be the number 3 starter if you were to end up in a wild card series and your season was on the line. You could do worse than starting Eric Fetty in that third game. It's better than anything that you have otherwise at the moment. I realize that the track record of Eric Fetty makes a lot of people concerned, but it genuinely feels like he discovered something with the sweeper while he was in Korea, and he is a different pitcher. And in an odd way, I think that his history is almost helpful, that, like, he's been through all of that, and that gets him to this point. So Fetty is the guy that I've elevated over the rest of the group. Is there someone else of the Quantrill, Anderson, is there anybody else that you would feel like that's the right play for the Orioles, looking for specifically a number 3 starter?
Yeah, I really like Eric Fetty. You can get him for another year as well, which is super nice. And I think Eric Fetty is going to kind of follow the mold of Merrill Kelly, who had just like a 5th starter, swingman, bad pitcher at times. MLB career, went over to Asia and came back and was the ace of the Diamondback staff for a while and was their number 2 last year, or for most of that season as they went to the World Series. And I think Fetty could be that. The other thing about Fetty, though, is he's a little more controllable. He's had one of the better seasons, and he's getting traded. There's so many guys on these National League teams where you're just like, are they going to sell? Are they not going to sell? They're 40 and 43, but they're also 2 games out of the wild card. So what in the world are they going to do? And when you combine really all of that, you get to the point where Fetty is going to be available, and I think a great option, but is going to be really pricey because everybody's going after Fetty. Those second-tier guys, I think, are going to be the rental guys. Those are going to be much more available to the Orioles, I think, because they're going to be cheaper. And, the O's can get them for a half season and then kind of reset what they need when they head into the offseason. I haven't seen this name brought up as much. I really like Luis Severino. I thought the Orioles should have brought him in the offseason. Yeah. Who knows if the Mets will be sellers now? They've, Grimace has led them back into the playoff race. But if he's available, and maybe the Mets do that buy and sell thing where they sell off the rentals and they keep everybody else, his strikeouts have gone up. He's looking better and better as the season goes on. He's pitched in the AL East a whole lot, and I think he would be fairly cheap if the Mets wanted to sell. That's a guy I like. Quantrill is interesting, but he doesn't miss any bats, and that's concerning because the Orioles need guys who can strike somebody out at some point here. Severino could play up in the bullpen if he gets moved there, near the end of the season. I do love Fetty. I'm just worried about the prices going up and up and up because, as I mentioned earlier, there's just not that many good pitchers that are available right now.
So let's go to the bullpen conversation. I was a Helsley guy. That's what I wanted. And then the Cardinals are currently sitting in a playoff position in the National League. So that's off the table. I still, as much as people can make the argument of, hey, the Athletics, maybe the insane price comes down a little bit because no one's willing to meet the insane price, and there's just no reason for them to hold on to Mason Miller and let him decrease his value because they're not going to be attempting to win over the next couple of seasons while they're playing in a AAA ballpark. I still don't think the Orioles will be the team that pays any exorbitant price for a relief arm because they just believe in the Pythagorean model so much, and I think that says you don't do this. So I've kind of made peace with the idea that it's not going to be a Craig Kimbrel replacement that you're going to get, and that you're going to have to just get more leverage arms in that process. And if that's what Tanner Scott is, okay. If that's what a Finnegan is, I guess that's okay. It's not going to make you feel good. This is going to be an issue. There's not going to be an extraordinary amount of confidence. I just don't know that I believe that there is the confident guy that would be the closer that you have full faith in that's even going to be available, and certainly not the one that you're going to be willing to pay the price for.
Yeah, I think the additions to this bullpen, which are going to be made, I think at the minimum one, and they might even trade for 2 relievers at this deadline. I don't think any of them will be like the lockdown closer where the moment you get them, you say, Kimbrel, you've got the 8th. Kimbrel, you've got the 7th. Like, we've got a new 9th inning guy. I think it'll be another guy who's got closing experience, at least one of the two, and someone who can fill in for Kimbrel if, God forbid, he has a run like he had in the NLCS last year with the Phillies, where you have another guy you can throw into that role pretty immediately. And the nice part about Kimbrel is he accepted that demotion for a couple weeks earlier this year and pitched really well in that 6th and 7th and 8th inning role. So that makes me feel a little bit better if they have to do that. But little sneak preview of Wednesday's episode of the Locked On Orioles podcast. I've got my wish list that I'm doing for rental relievers.
Okay.
So just guys that are free agents after the year. You know, it wouldn't cost very much at all, but are still good pitchers. My number 1 and 2 right now, David Robertson is number 1.
Okay.
Like, yeah, he's in his late 30s, but we just saw the Rangers this weekend, and I think they need to at least sell off their rental pieces. That is not a playoff team right now. I know they're getting DeGrom back, but they are so far back in the wild card. Robertson this year, like, he's fairly cheap. There's an option for 2025 potentially with him if he pitches well. He's got his lowest FIP since 2011 when he was like the shutdown setup man with the Yankees. He's striking out a lot of guys. That would be my guy. And then number 2, if he comes back healthy and the Blue Jays are willing to trade within the division, Jimmy Garcia from the Blue Jays, who we have seen shut down the Orioles already this year with some nasty stuff. He's an impending free agent. The Blue Jays are going nowhere. Those 2 guys would be guys where they're not closers on their team right now. They're both setup men, but they have closing experience. They have nasty stuff, and they both strike out a lot of batters and miss bats, which the Orioles desperately need before they get to Kimbrel. So those are kind of my top 2 where you could move them into the 9th if you absolutely had to, but they're not like the headline after the trade isn't Orioles get new closer.
No, it's more like, and I think a lot of people make the argument for if you can keep Craig Kimbrel's workload down somehow, right? Like, can they be the guy that closes every 3rd time in order to keep the usage down for Craig Kimbrel and try to keep him fresh, where we know, like, the strikeout ability is still there. It's just that, like, he looked like a different guy on Saturday night than he looked like on Friday night when he was pitching the second game of back-to-back, and it feels like you've got to do everything in your power to try to limit how much you're going to him and try to keep him fresh the rest of the way.
Yeah. And the fresher he's been, the better he's been at times. We know the worst blowups he had was when he was pitching 4 out of 6 days, and he's done it before, but he's getting older and your body doesn't recover as well when, you're pitched this many innings and you're into your late 30s like Kimbrel is now. And I just think that's the right way to do it, because there isn't, you're not going to go and get a top closer unless you're willing to spend an inordinate amount on Mason Miller. And I just think these guys are going to help you. And yeah, you're right. Kimbrel doesn't have to get every 9th inning down the stretch. Maybe you can give him more breaks, and maybe that makes him better in the postseason. Because I just think, like, his body just broke down. Like, he was into late October pitching that much with the Phillies last year, and he just lost it. And the less he pitches now, I think the better the Orioles are going to be when it really matters.
Just because you brought up the Rangers, where are you with Scherzer and Eovaldi as potentially being starting options?
I like them both. I put Andrew Haney into that mix after what he did to the Orioles on Sunday night.
Really good.
He's a rental as well.
Yeah.
Scherzer would be a weird one because you'd get to first see, how much money the Orioles are willing to eat. I mean, it is a rental, but there's still the money for the rest of the year, the contract, and it's still like $20 million for a half a season. So that'd be like test number 1 for David Rubenstein. But I'm on board with all three of those guys. I mean, you want to talk about playoff experience? They've all got it, not just from last year, but Eovaldi and Scherzer have both been World Series heroes, early in their career. So I will take that. There's injury questions with all three of them, especially Eovaldi, who's basically hurt every year of his career. And Scherzer, because of the neck injury, is just not the Max Scherzer of old.
No doubt.
But I think all three of those guys help the Orioles. And quite frankly, if they traded for any of those three, I think that's your number 3 starter heading into the postseason. And the O's don't have that right now, so I'm on board with any of them.
All right, man. Remind everybody about Locked On Orioles, where they can find you, what you're doing, and on social media as well.
Yeah, it's July, so that means trade deadline coverage and draft coverage, along with the Orioles luckily playing less games than they did in June. But Monday through Friday, every morning, about a 30-minute episode, Locked On Orioles on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts. I am on Twitter less and less as the season goes on because it gets worse and worse on there, but it is at Locked On Orioles if you still do want to follow over there.
Boy, you are not kidding about that. I don't know where you are. Like I cannot take like the Brandon Hyde haters of social media. I can't do it. Like I don't have it in me for people to be so unwilling to believe data. Like
it's not deep data either. It's he won 101 games. That's pretty old school data right there.
Well, but it's even like the little things like, oh, I can't believe he'd take a guy out that had 2 hits in a game. Like, well, maybe when he's literally done nothing but ground out when he's faced a lefty all season. Maybe you start to understand when all it takes is 2 clicks for you to realize that like there is a determined difference when he faces left-handed pitchers and when he faces right-handed pitchers. It's not I don't know why we are so unwilling to accept such obvious... Dude, when it gets murky, like, obviously you brought up Heaney. Like, the Heaney thing is complicated, right? Like, it's very difficult to figure out that dude and who should be in the lineup against that guy. But sometimes it is not difficult at all to figure out why a decision is made, man. Like, it's just not hard. And screaming about the manager that does nothing but win is just a... Boy, it is a wild concept for me, bro. Like
that sounds like another segment we need to do, Glenn, in the future. But I will say there's a famous, I think it was John Sterling before he retired a couple of years ago. Susan Waldman brought up a story on Fangraphs on the broadcast, and John Sterling was like, what's a Fangraph? And I feel like that is how a lot of Orioles fans just live their lives.
And look, dude, I'm not even the guy that has the bandwidth to go like super deep. Like I don't have the turbo data. Like, I'm just not there. I got to talk about all these other sports and I got to do all this play-by-play. But like, my God, man, like just figuring out what someone hits against lefties is not hard for any of us to do. And to understand why it is that the organization would say, yes, this is what we want our manager to do, is to believe in data. And no matter who the manager is, it's going to be someone who believes in data. It's wild, bro. All right, we'll do that show some other time. Appreciate you, man. Thanks for hopping on. Thanks for hopping on for a couple of minutes, bro. Really appreciate you.
Thank you, Glenn.
Connor Newcomb, Locked On Orioles, with us here on GCR. Phew. Sorry. I end up giving myself. I get worked up. And then Connor's just like, yeah, dude. It ain't me. And I know it's not him. I know it's not. It's just like, and people that I love, obviously. People that I love them. Everybody knows I love Paul Valley. I love my co-host, Rita. I love her. But sometimes we just got to be willing to believe data. We have to. And we can't hide behind, it shouldn't always be about analytics. I agree, but sometimes data is telling you the fact. And you got to be willing to ride with it. All right. Wash that out. Breathe in, breathe out. All right, we're all good now. Today's show is also brought to you by the print issue of PressBox, which is available for free at your neighborhood Royal Farms, any of the hundreds of locations around town where you find PressBox. You can read it all at PressBoxOnline.com. Of course, on the cover, Wes Moore, governor of the state of Maryland. Stan and I sat down for a lengthy conversation, sports conversation, with the governor in his, I guess it wasn't in his office. It was in the State House, though, down in Annapolis a couple weeks back, and we cover all of the sports topics that are relevant to his administration, the lease deals, obviously the ground lease at Camden Yards, geographically, what does that look like? Can the parking lots be taken away? Like, is that – we talked about all those things with the governor, and so you can read all about that. It's also our annual travel issue and a lot of sports tourism opportunities around the state that you can check out inside this print issue of Press Box. There was Clay Thompson goes to Dallas. It's one of those weird things.
They'll be back.
There's every reason to think that Dallas is going to be relevant again next year. Like, there's no reason to think they were going to take a dramatic step back. And we can be dismissive of Clay Thompson at this point in his career, and I get it. As was pointed out by a few people yesterday on social media, unquestionably, one of the things the Mavericks really could have used is another more consistent outside shooter in the finals. The real question is whether or not Clay Thompson can still be that guy at this point in his career. Certainly makes more sense for him to go to Dallas than it would have to go to L.A., where in L.A. he would still have to shoulder the burden of being relied upon. In Dallas, he's never going to have to be the alpha. He'll probably still have a Clay Thompson game every now and then, right? Like
37-point quarter.
You just look up and, like, he just can't miss, right? Like, they just keep getting the ball back to him and he just can't miss. And he should benefit from the attention that it is paid to Luka and to Kyrie, and that should give him more open looks. He went through a stretch this year, and it was pointed out by a few folks. In, like, February, he shot, like, sub 30% from beyond the arc. And because of that month, his numbers on the whole look like a guy that's at the end. But if you took away that month, the rest of the season, he was still an outstanding three-point shooter. So if you accept that that's really all that he's supposed to be now, he could still be valuable for a Mavericks team. Is it difference maker? Does it put them over the top? Does it even guarantee that they're the favorites to win the West? No. I mean, I do think it hurts the Nuggets to lose KCP. I saw a story yesterday that, like, Jokic is pushing for them to try to get Westbrook.
Really?
And, like, every time you hear Westbrook, you're just like, poison states. No. Like, do you want to win? No, you don't. But, like, I don't know where he is at this point in his career. And, like, it's
if Jokic wants him, like,
that is it's weird where I'm like, I don't know, maybe? Like, maybe he could be helpful for a team that's overall better. If he can be more of a role player on an overall better team, like, maybe the Westbrook thing could work. But I do think it hurts them to lose KCP. I still think that Minnesota defaults to being the favorite to win the West because I think Anthony Edwards is the best of this group and because I think, like, having gone through it this year, they don't hit the wall quite the same way as they hit the wall last year. But they got to prove that. And obviously, Oklahoma City probably, who they got, who's the guy they got from New York? Harvenstein?
Oh, yeah, Hartenstein.
Like, that's not a, that's still a group that's going to be together and it's going to look good. I don't know. I'm not as dismissive of Klay Thompson as I would have been if he said had gone. If Klay Thompson had gone to the Lakers, it's a larf, like, okay. Yeah. Do the retirement tour, do the, go run around in L.A. for a little bit, and everybody remembers who you used to be. But oddly in Dallas, because of all the attention that has to be paid elsewhere, I do think that he could still be helpful for a team that has a legitimate chance to win a title. Anything else in the NBA front that mattered in the last? It's like we talked about yesterday. It's just not. It's not the sexy year for free agency.
Hold on. Yeah, nothing. I guess.
Klay Thompson
Jason Tatum obviously was bad.
Well, yeah, gets a ton of money,
happen.
but yeah, that's really what this offseason is. The offseason of give all your guys a ton of money and Paul George. Like that's.
Yeah, so
what this offseason is.
Paul George will just lose in the conference semis.
Correct.
In the Eastern Conference.
Well, I said yesterday. you could make the argument that they're as likely as anybody besides Boston to win, to be the second best team in the East.
Yeah, but they're Philly. So.
I understand the thought process. I guess the question really is if Milwaukee has a healthy Giannis and Damian Lillard, can they figure that out in a way that we expected them to figure it out last year, and they never really did, and then they both got hurt, and so we never got to see it? Is there a world where they can figure that out? You know,
man, all these guys are so old now.
Who?
Damian Lillard's going to be 34.
Yeah, but Damian Lillard...
Klay Thompson will be 35 in the middle of next season.
Again, that's why, to me, Klay Thompson doesn't work somewhere where it requires more out of him. Klay Thompson...
where they need him?
Can only be, dude, your job is to get open, and when the tension comes, we'll kick it out to you. So that's why Dallas works for me. Frankly, even in Golden State, they still needed him to be a little bit more than that, and it just wasn't happening for Klay Thompson at this point. They would absolutely have needed him to be more than that in L.A., and that can't be the case. But they don't need him to be more than that in Dallas. Lillard, because he hasn't dealt with the significant injuries that Klay Thompson has dealt with. I get that he's been hurt. I still think that that's a slightly younger 34 than Thompson's 35, and that if Lillard does get back on the floor, like to expect him to be prime, Dame Dalla, no, but to still be impactful with the team going through Giannis, I don't think at 34 that's out of the question. All right, still to come, Dave Sims. Mariners play-by-play voice. We will preview the series that gets underway tonight in Seattle. That's next. It's Glenn Clark Radio.
The ultimate fan experience awaits you at Sports and Social Maryland. See how we're raising the sports bar with our massive 100-foot media wall featuring 40 HD TVs and a 47-foot big screen. Bet on your favorite teams and this year's biggest events at the FanDuel Sportsbook while enjoying your favorite beers and cocktails, plus our delicious takes on bar food classics. Visit Sports and Social at Live Casino and Hotel Maryland at Arundel Mills. Must be 21. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER.
Driving in Maryland? Did you know an Easy Pass from DriveEasyMD.com can save you time and money? Of course you did, because you are a thrifty driver. An antenna reads your Easy Pass transponder and automatically deducts the toll from your Easy Pass account. Learn more at DriveEasyMD.com.
Hagerstown, Maryland, a snapshot of American history that dates back centuries. Today, the roots of the city expand with another historical moment, the grand opening of Meredith Park, Hagerstown's new event stadium and home to the Atlantic League Flying Boxcars. Experience the energy, culture, and adventure. Plan your getaway today at America's newest and most innovative ballpark. You're welcome in Hagerstown, Maryland. Visit Hagerstown.com.
Treat yourself and taste the Baltimore tradition that is the legendary Costas Inn. Hey, it's Stan the Fan Charles. For over 50 years, the Costas Inn has been a Baltimore original, dishing out their legendary fat, delicious, award-winning crab cakes and steamed crabs. It's crab season, so sit back and crack some crabs while watching the Birds pursue another divisional title on Costas' 15 TVs. On Monday night, the Costas Inn offers their half-pound jumbo lump crab cake with two sides for under $30. So head on down to the Costas Inn today at 4100 North Point Boulevard or visit them at CostasInn.com.
There he is, Agent 00 Chicken. Nothing can keep him from Royal Farms Chicken Palooza. Because right now, he can get a 3-piece world-famous chicken box for just $8, with a portion of each sale donated to a local charity. Plus, register to win world-famous chicken for a year. Come to Royal Farms Chicken Palooza. It's a real thriller, but it's only for a limited time. Real fresh, real fast. Royal Farms.
The Toyota Tacoma comes in a range of models and trim lines, so you can choose the perfect Tacoma to reflect your unique personality and driving habits. Check out buyatoyota.com for deals on new Tacomas from your local Toyota dealer today.
Gambling can be a fun and entertaining experience, but there are risks involved. If you're planning on betting on the game at the casino or on your phone or computer, know your limit, stay within it. Set a budget and a time to stop. Remember, gambling isn't a financial solution, and it doesn't mix well with alcohol or drugs. Know the risks and have a plan before you begin gambling. For free and confidential services, call 1-800-GAMBLER 24/7 or go to helpmygamblingproblem.org.
The Ed Block Courage Award Foundation has been working in partnership with the NFL for 46 years to support abused, neglected, and at-risk youth across the country, partnering each team with a children's facility or program that supports the well-being of those in need. Annually, one player from each team is selected by their peers to receive the Courage Award for their inspiration on and off the field. Learn more about how the Ed Block Courage Award Foundation makes a difference, and be sure to check out their latest podcast and web series episodes at edblock.org.
Escape to Ocean City, Maryland, and discover a place that just feels lighter, where every day feels like Saturday and French fries are a food group, where flip-flops are always in fashion and seafood is always in season, where the boardwalk is bustling and the beach is right outside your door, where you can rise with the tide and feel like a kid again. Ocean City, Maryland, somewhere to smile about. Book your trip at oceocean.com.
Coming back in here with Glenn and the other guy, Garrett, whatever his name is. You know who they are.
All right, back in here on GCR. I actually had something wrong earlier today. Believe it or not.
No.
I know.
No.
I said that the Kansas City is a great soccer town, and that's why I'm sure they wanted to play like a big match in Kansas City, but like the stadium clearly is not. Although as it was pointed out by a lot of people, we've watched a lot of football games in that stadium. We know there's got to be a place to put a camera to get a decent camera angle. I don't know how they screwed this up so badly. But it also felt like...
Was it like, did they lose connection or something? Because about 35 minutes in, didn't it switch?
It was a completely different angle. It still wasn't the traditional angle. That one was a lower angle, the one that they switched
I guess
to.
That's fair.
They found some other... It was a low... It was a much better angle than the one they had to start the match, but it still wasn't the traditional angle that we're used to watching soccer. I don't know the story, and it's from the CONMEBOL World Field. But I said the MLS, they do have two different soccer stadiums for the Kansas City teams. The MLS stadium is in Kansas City, Kansas. Apparently, the NWSL stadium is in Kansas City, Missouri. Now, does it matter? No, of course it doesn't matter.
It's too
but
confusing.
That's how much of a soccer community they are. They have two separate soccer-specific stadiums for two different teams. Crazy, man. Like, that is... I don't think there's another city in the country that has that. I know Louisville built a soccer-specific stadium for their NWSL team, but they don't have an MLS team. So I'm pretty sure every other market, like it's like it is in D.C., where they just both share the stadium. Like, I don't know of any other market where they're so soccer rabid. In fact, it's a big thing. It happened last week. So the NWSL stadium is on, I guess, a river. And there's been this like bit where they were trying to figure out who was going to kick a ball into the river, because you have to like get it over the end of the
grandstand or
I don't think it's a full grandstand at that end of the stadium. Like, it's maybe like
it's just like it's open,
like a picnic perch or something like that. And I think last week we saw for the first time a ball go into the river. Dude, this is the type of nerdy stuff that I see on the internet. And I'm like, how about that? And then I realized no one else cares.
Like, yes, finally.
Yeah, just me. Only guy on the planet.
They did it.
Yeah, right. Way to go, guys. Joe, we did it, Joe. Haven't been doing that so much. Yikes. Yikes. But that's how much of a soccer community they are in Kansas City. So I understand why you want to have a game there, but you got to be able to have a viable camera angle, or else the stadium. It also felt like when they cut over to the benches, like that there was not enough room. On the sideline. It felt like everybody was stacked on the sideline. And
one of the Uruguay players was trying to run the ball down. He ran right into the bench.
It looked like,
I don't know, I guess it was a security guy sitting there or something.
It just looked to me like, as good of a soccer community as it is, until they have a new stadium, like, you can't play these high level matches there anymore. Like, I don't know. Again, I'm not an expert. I'm not the guy, but that's the way it came off on the television presentation. And then from Darren tweets me and says, dude, does it feel, this is not bad, do you just find yourself rooting for anybody to make a trade, so at least you have an idea of what trades might cost? That is the difficulty for me of even talking about all of these guys that you were just talking about with Connor. I don't even have a sense when you say, hey, trade for Fetty, it probably won't cost you that much. Well, what won't cost you that much? Is that Norby and Stowers and a pitching prospect? Or is it just one of them? What is that? Yeah, look, we're going to be doing this. Be prepared. This is going to be our content for the next month. I mean, that's the reality, right? Like, yes, we'll talk about the games. We'll talk about the things that happened during the course of the games. And, we'll talk about when it's time to call up Kobe Mayo. Obviously, we'll discuss those things. And, you guys will bitch and complain and piss and moan about somebody pinch hitting in a certain spot. Like, we'll do all of those things. But big picture, the conversation now surrounds what's going to happen at the deadline. And so, yeah, it is difficult. I kind of joked about it in the column that I wrote. The one asset that wasn't even like all that trustworthy, but it just existed, and so if it was the MLB trade machine or whatever that was on Twitter, and they or on online, and they made that a subscription service, and it wasn't nearly good enough that you would be willing to pay for it. So, yeah, it's very difficult to have these conversations because you are just wildly hypothesizing. And until you see a trade be made that does give you an idea of what someone is paying for starting pitching, that's all we're doing is hypothesizing. That's it. All right, Orioles and Mariners. They open up a 3-game series tonight out on the West Coast. It is always a pleasure to catch up with our next guest, the play-by-play voice, the legendary play-by-play voice of the Seattle Mariners. He is Dave Sims, and he's back with us now here on GCR. Dave, it's Glenn in Baltimore. It's always great to catch up with you, sir. Thank you for taking a couple of minutes for us early this morning out there.
My pleasure, Glenn. Good to be with you. How you doing, man?
Everything is good, man. I mean, it's been a heck of a year in Baltimore. This slates to be another great week of baseball between these two teams. I guess we start with the obvious, Dave, right? Like the offense kind of continues to be the issue for the Mariners. As good as they are and as dominant as the pitching is, are they going to have enough offensively to be a real threat to win the American League?
At current pace, no, but I got to believe there's a pickup in there at some point. And I certainly pray that there is, because you don't want to waste this window here, this wide open window with a great starting pitching staff, a bullpen that's good and it's going to get better in the next couple of weeks with Santos coming back and Gabe Spire coming back. It's just frustrating. I mean, dead last in hitting, and with guys who have, good numbers on the back of their baseball cards. And right now it is just not happening. I mean, so look at the numbers right now. We are gaudy. 218, everybody. Dead last in the major leagues. It's hard to believe.
By the way, it's a testament to just how good the pitching is, obviously, that despite that, here you are. Is anyone starting to turn the corner? Is there anyone that you say, hey, there is reason for optimism because it looks like, X player over the last few weeks is starting to come on?
Great question. That's a question we ask. I ask myself. I ask the manager. I ask the hitting coach. I don't know. Every hour. Somebody get hot. Who can get hot? I mean, as I'm looking back to my scorecard here, Mitch Garver had a stretch there where he had a couple 3 home runs, I think, down in Tampa, and went back to back. He's walking a lot, but he wants your DH to be banging the ball out of the yard, not leading the team in walks.
Yeah.
Julio's the biggest struggle on the team. I mean, there's a guy at one point, let's see, he went 1 for 5 a couple of days ago. That makes him something like 5 for his last 47 or 48. I mean, that's how bad it's going. And then if you look back at the numbers last year in August, when the Mariners took a run and it looked like an absolute lock to make the playoffs, and a lock to be very problematic in the playoffs, his numbers were off the chart in the month of August, and then he faded and didn't get any help in September. Right now, everybody's scuffling. I mean, it's just unbelievable. Every now and then you get a guy to pop in. Like 2 days ago, Luke Raley with 3 for 5.
Right.
He's the only guy with multiple hits in that game. And we don't get a lot of innings where they're multiple hit innings. And 4 for 18 runners in scoring position on Sunday. For the series against Minnesota, Minnesota's a good ball club. They beat us 2 out of 3. 4 for 34 in the series runners in scoring position. And you heard right, 4 for 34. Meanwhile, the pitching's fabulous.
Right.
And Logan Gilbert, you can definitely consider him as a starter in the All-Star game. I mean, he's been victimized by some low run support, but his numbers across the board are pretty darn good.
He is Dave Sims. He's with us here on GCR as we're getting ready for Orioles Mariners. It's Grayson Rodriguez, George Kirby in the opener tonight. Dave, with that in mind, I know that there's been a theory that has been out there that perhaps the Mariners could trade from the overwhelming pitching they have at the major league level to try to acquire bats. And obviously that's not what any team that's contending wants to do. You want to trade from your prospects. You want to trade from the minor leagues. But is it at a point where like that has to be considered just because it's almost so desperate to try to take advantage? Like if you had to trade one of these guys, that's what you got to do because you desperately need bats.
I don't think it's reached that point, that number of DEFCON just yet, and hopefully that's not over the horizon. But I'd be stunned if they picked one of the 5 and moved one of them. Now I tell you what, if that were the case, that means you got a heck of a haul coming back.
Right.
And then Vladimir Guerrero's name keeps coming up in conversation with Sports Talk out here in Seattle.
Yep.
I was just checking his numbers. I knew he was having a good year. He's having a hell of a year, and he just killed the Yankees on a series a few days ago. Something like 7 for 15 with 8 ribs and like 4 home runs. So it's been crazy. So we're going to find out. I mean, the trade deadline's coming up. I mean, today's July 2nd. We've still got 3-4 weeks, and a 10-game lead's down to 3. Houston's on the comeback. It's going to be and we open up the second half of the season here at home against Houston. So that's and the Mariners have had tremendous success against Houston and Texas. I think combined 10-2 record against those two clubs.
The Orioles weren't able to do that against Houston a couple weeks ago, so there's some jealousy.
Right.
Dave, we should take a moment just to talk about how good the pitching is. Like, it really is remarkable to me that everything that you're saying about the offense, and yet there you are in first place. And we look at the numbers and we just say, my God, like it's pitching on top of pitching on top of pitching on top. The back end of your rotation, you're still feeling pretty confident about.
Oh, you got Brian Wu, who's battling, multiple, cold strains and whatnot. That kid gets out there, and he's throwing at one point. He was, like a 1.57 ERA. I mean, something just insane. Logan, Logan's got a 2.72. Castillo's been good. He hadn't been great, but another one that didn't get enough. With some run support, he's not 6-9. He's 9-6. George Kirby has pitched better at home. Bryce Miller's pitched better at home, but yet the numbers are outstanding. You look at Brian Wu, who's been he's on the DL right, on the IL right now. He's 3-1 with a 1.7 in 8 starts. I mean, it's ridiculous. Munoz, the closer, he's got a 1.64. Trent Thornton got his first big league save. He's a good guy that in the hold department. He's done a good job. Austin Voth, Ryan Stanback, Taylor Saucedo. I mean, you go right down the line. Gabe Spires on the IL. He hasn't been as good as he was last year, but he's had his moment. So as short as the hitting has been, the pitching, has more than compensated for that. And the other thing too, consider the Mariners like just dynamite in 1-run games when you have that kind of pitching. And the other thing too, to not forget, it's a good defensive team.
Yeah. No,
they can catch it. They can go get it.
No, it goes a long way. There's no doubt about that. It goes a long way into backing all that up. Dave, 2 guys that are interesting names to us here. One I know is not on the team at the moment, but I've gotten to know Tyler Locklear and his family a lot over the years. He's an
great dude. Yeah.
I get it. Like, I think a lot of people out there, my understanding was he stayed up longer than was expected, that he was going to stay up at first, showed some positive signs. How much faith is there that Tyler Locklear is part of that thing moving forward for the Mariners?
They want him to play. They want him to get ABs. I got a feeling we'll see him later on in the season. It wouldn't shock me. He's a decent glove guy. He's got some pop. He's had some moments here early on. First hit, first home run, first rib. That whole thing. So no, he's a good-looking prospect, no question about it.
Yeah, a great guy. Comes from an awesome family, and we were so excited for him.
Yeah, it sounds like.
And then Mike Baumann ends up out there. It looks like he's sort of the same problems that he ran into in Baltimore, where like in moments he looks dominant, and you say there's something there, and then in other moments he is so easily hittable, and it just feels like consistency continues to be an issue for him.
Yeah, but I tell you what, the pitching staff here, Pete Woodworth and Trent Blank and Tony Arnerich, they do a hell of a job, and they've been able to, tighten up the games of a lot of guys here. Hey man, this is what you do well. Stick with it, and be on attack mode and stay ahead in the count. And those thoughts, those sentiments have been played out very nicely. And that, hence the record the Mariners have right now, and that's they're in first place. So, and every day I remind myself, and I say it out loud, hey folks, they're still in first place. Right. I know it's not a great feeling, but they're still in first place, and this beats the heck out of where we've been over the years. So, baseball, how baseball goes. So it's you keep on pushing, man, because there's always a game tomorrow.
It's such a weird conversation to have, Dave. We're like, they are a first place team. Like they're obviously good. It's just that like I keep looking at these numbers offensively and saying to myself, how can it be that they're
Let me ask you this, or tell you this. If you feel that way,
I can only imagine.
Grab 5 minutes. Grab 5 minutes on our sports talk station.
Right.
You don't even have to grab 5. Just grab 2.
Right. I totally.
And you think as a baseball fan you're frustrated. You have no idea. I don't think anybody's sitting in front of a cannon ready to pull that string. But no, it's probably not too far off. I mean, they're not happy.
I understand. I just when you have that much,
guys have been there.
Well, and that's the thing. When you have that much pitching, you just want to be able to take it. Like it's the thing that everybody else in baseball is looking for, including here in Baltimore, right? Where we're very excited about this team, and they're in first place in the East, and it's all good. But yet you look and you say, but do they have enough pitching that they can win a World Series? Probably not. The Mariners have the thing that everyone else wants. I can understand the frustration.
No, I hear you, man. That's where it is. Yeah.
We're all looking like, dude, if we could only have a little bit of that.
That's right. Of that. Yeah, everybody's looking at everything with great envy. Yeah,
man.
No question about it.
Dave, if I could.
That's one of the reasons why we love the game. I'm looking at your club, and you lead the freaking major league runs per game,
scored,
5.21. Yep. Are you kidding me?
Yep. Yeah, life is good. The young stars.
How do you lead in total runs?
But Dave, they're going to have to, at the moment, they'd have to start Dean Kramer or Cole Irvin in the third game of a playoff series. And
let me tell you something. And Dean Kramer, and if I remember correctly, and Cole Irvin, for what it's worth, the Mariners own those two.
Yeah, so there you go, right? Like, this is what we're talking about, man. This is the issue. If I could, though, you bring that up, Dave. Like, you've seen, how this franchise from afar has turned around a little bit over. And obviously, the Mariners lost 2 out of 3 to Baltimore earlier this season. How impressed are you with what it is that the Orioles have done in this utter overhaul and now finding themselves where we are having legitimate World Series conversations in Baltimore?
Oh, man, boy, if you're not, something's wrong with you. I mean, the draft opportunities were there because of poor play and poor management and bad player, personnel decisions. The player personnel decisions that have been made in lieu of, the high draft choices. Those all those dudes. I don't have to go through the litany of them. So many guys are panning out. It's unbelievable. And panning out, heck, they're off the chart.
Yeah.
And there you go.
Yep.
I mean, it's as simple as that. And it's such it's such an inexact science. I mean, you can bird dog these cats all you want, but they get to the major leagues. This is the show up here, and things are different. And everybody's a stud. I don't care. And I always tell people that the 23rd, 4th, and 5th and 6th guy on these teams are great athletes. They may not be great baseball players. They may not be superstars, but they're part of that. Half of 1% of dudes who make it to the pros. I mean, so now you add what you guys have put on top of your ball club. Forget about it. I mean, geez.
No, it's been exciting.
I mean,
can I pose this, Dave? Julio Rodriguez, you mentioned. Obviously, it's been a struggle for him. I would still feel like I'm very confident that Julio Rodriguez is a great baseball player, and I would still be exorbitantly excited to know that he is locked down for some time in Seattle. But that's the thing. That's the next step that we're asking for in Baltimore is to lock some of these guys down and keep them around. Can I assume that even though there have been some struggles that, like, Mariners fans aren't suddenly thinking that it was like a mistake or they're regretting or anything like that? The fact
the answer to that is no, because I just before you guys called in, that people have been killing Julio. Although there was a movement the other day. Remember last year when in Philly, that's where I was born and raised, and you know how they were getting on Trey Turner.
Yep.
And then somebody said, "Yo, we need to get off his back. Let's give him a standing O every time," and then things took off. It's that started. I want to say when we got back the other day. First game in the Minnesota series on Friday. So, Julio comes up, he was batting a 2 or 3 hole, whatever it was. And we had a great crowd. It had 45,000. It was a sellout. People stood up and cheered their ass off.
That's cool.
And they continue to do it. So, hopefully the magic that Philly generated for Trey will work for Julio. I'm looking at your numbers. Here's another thing, too. You guys had, that outrageous month of June. You had 60 home runs, which is, a record or tied a record or something. You got 8 dudes in double figure. Wait a minute. I'm looking at the wrong game. I'm sorry. You have that was last year. You had 8 dudes that were hitting that hit double figure home runs. We had 2.
Yeah. No. We know the lineup and the joy of the scoring runs is a blessing, man. Like, we know it. But they also lost 4 starting pitchers to injuries this season.
I know, like within about a 5 or 6 day period, right?
It's tough, man. It's a tough thing. It is borderline miraculous that they're still in the place that they are, given everything they've lost starting pitching wise. It required exactly what you're talking about, those 60 home runs in June, in order to be able to withstand everything they lost starting pitching wise. And
I'm looking at the names you have. Who's that? Tyler Wells.
Yeah.
Kramer's on a 15.
Yeah.
Bradish,
who led the league in ERA a year ago, right? Like, who legitimately was a Cy Young candidate a year ago. And John Means, who, it's awful what's going on with John Means.
He no-no'd us a few years ago.
Yeah, that's right. So teams don't typically, survive losing 4 starting pitchers. It really is remarkable that they've been able to get what they've gotten out of, like, Albert Suarez, a total journeyman, and Cade Povich, a rookie who stepped up. It's remarkable. But, we're just in a place where you want to win a World Series, you're going to need you got to step up, right? Like, you're going to have to deliver another starting pitcher into that group.
You got some dudes on the IL, man. That is crazy.
Yeah, it's tough, man. It's
and Kimbrel's got 19, but how many has he blown?
He's blown 4 one-run saves this season. He hadn't. In fact, Dave, it was odd. Until last weekend, he hadn't had a 1-run save all year, and then on Friday and Saturday against Texas, he got back-to-back 1-run saves. And
how about? I'm looking at Cano. What about him?
Cano's been a mess recently, man. He's been a mess.
He's okay Saturday.
Yeah, he bounced back on Saturday. And had it gave him a good inning in a 1-run game. But Cano, and that's the bummer, because you looked at him and you thought he might have the talent, the temperament to be a closer, but it has been rough the last few weeks and the last month for Yennier Cano.
As you know, hey man, I remember. What was my boy's name? I literally liked him. Joe Beimel. Joe Beimel was with us one year.
Yeah.
He had to come in and get a save. I don't know. I guess the closer had blown a save or something. He had to come in extra innings and try to close it out. He said, "Hey man, I'm not used to that. That's a different world. That's a whole different planet." You throw dudes into that position. That's right. You guys were without Batista. So man, he had 33 saves last year.
Yeah,
that's a different animal.
Yes,
man.
correct. Yeah, you can't replace Felix Batista the season that he had a year ago. It was magic, Dave. I mean, it was unbelievable. It was.
Don't believe me.
Yeah, I mean, we
had some of that shovage.
Yeah. Well, it felt like the way that you felt about Rivera. It felt like, okay, this dude's coming in, we're good. Like that's how confident that you were in Felix Batista a year ago. Dave Sims, I just wandered to your Twitter and I saw your picture of you and Nelson Cruz, dude. We had Nelson Cruz in Baltimore for 1 year, and I still get emotional thinking about him.
Let me tell you something. I know I have friends in Baltimore. They're still pissed,
bro.
You effing guys took Nelly. I said, hey, you paid him, you got him. What are you talking about?
That guy, as a baseball player, but as a dude, like just as a human, about as good as it got, man. Like love Nelson Cruz.
Yes, sir. Hey, I've been in this business as a baseball as a sports writer, talk show host, play-by-play guy. I've met a million dudes. He is top shelf.
No question, man. What a great guy. Dave Sims, it is always a pleasure, man. Really appreciate you waking up, taking some time for us this morning.
Anytime, Glenn. Good to hear your
Thanks.
voice. And sorry I missed you guys in Baltimore the last couple of years. It was always right in front of the New York trip, and I always take those 3 days off to get extra time back home in New York.
That's cool.
But we'll
That's
catch up.
cool.
Hopefully we'll see. How about this? Hopefully we'll see you in the play.
I love that. Let's make it happen. Thank you, Dave. Appreciate you, man.
All right, man. You're welcome. All right, take care, Glenn.
The
Be good.
great Dave Sims, legend in our business. Of course, not just obviously the Mariners, but NFL and Westwood One, among other things. Like, Dave Sims is the best. Appreciate him taking the time for us this morning. All right. Sam Basayo named to the All-Star Futures game. Oddly, no one else. And is that just because they don't do AAA guys? Because, like, you don't know if they're going to get called up again?
That would make sense.
Like, I don't really know. I feel like maybe the futures is supposed to be like lower levels, and that's the reason. Because like somebody would say, well, why wouldn't Jackson Holiday be on the futures game roster? And I do wonder if they like particularly try to avoid naming someone that could be called up in the next week or so.
Like that would make sense. But but also like, is it a big deal if they just miss? The one player doesn't like they lose one player on the roster. Like
but if they made it that you could call it, then it could be like nothing but AAA guys on those teams.
Yeah, okay. Yeah,
and then you can end up having 12 of them that end up getting called up in the course of that week. Like I just don't know what the rules are for putting together a futures game roster. In fairness, it's not my department, believe it or not. But that's the only Orioles prospect that's on. Now, okay, James Wood was named to the futures game roster.
Okay, yeah, all right.
When he got called up.
Drew Jones is on there
yesterday. No, but that's what I'm saying. Like, James Wood was called up yesterday. He's on the major league roster for the Washington Nationals and was named to the futures game today.
So does he have to pick now if he wants to play for the Nationals?
No,
or
I'm
the
going to be.
I'm
going to guess the Nationals are going to go ahead and say, "Guy." Enjoy being able to say you were named.
Go
to
ahead,
the
go to the
futures
futures
game.
game.
Yeah, right.
You won't be able to do this again.
It's a very weird. I don't know what the rules are for crafting a futures game.
Oh, yeah. Oh, okay. Sorry. I thought so. Jason Churio. I read it. I looked at it really quick and I thought it was Jason.
And maybe it is just supposed to be a reflection of your numbers that year, and they say Jackson Holliday's overall numbers this year are just not worthy of. I don't know, man. I don't know what the rules are. What are the rules? What are the rules? What are the rules? I have no idea what the rules are for the futures game, but none of the Orioles AAA like Kobe. If it was about numbers, Kobe Mayo presumably is on the futures game roster, right? Right?
They're only playing a 7-inning game.
Well, who cares? No one ever. Dude, you don't watch the futures game.
I know, but
like it's just about the futures game is so stupid because they play it at the same time as actual baseball games are being played.
Yeah.
I don't know who they think the
4
audience
o'clock.
is supposed to be for the futures game.
4 o'clock on Saturday.
I think that's better than it's been some years. I'm pretty sure some years it's been like 1 o'clock on Sunday.
So what if they did do that though? 1 o'clock on like they just. Like when they were out in London, they made it so that that game started at 1, and then all the other games didn't start till 4. What if they played this game at 1 on Saturday, and then all the other Saturday games were pushed back?
That would be
4?
better. Yeah, that would be wildly better. But they've never done anything to try to showcase the futures game. Like they don't play a Sunday night baseball game anymore. That would be the perfect spot to play the futures game, but they decided to put the draft in that spot.
Okay, that works actually.
Like so, then the next thing would be, why don't you move the futures game to Wednesday night? There's no baseball. There's nothing. We pretend to give a rat's ass about the ESPYs just because we're desperate for content. Why wouldn't you just move the futures game to Wednesday and hope that someone might tune in? I don't even know that people. I don't think you can draw a giant audience for the futures game.
Oh, Matt Shaw.
Because it's who?
Matt Shaw.
Oh, former Terp. Yeah. Good for Matt Shaw. So there's that. I just don't understand how Kobe Mayo isn't on this. And maybe the answer is you call the team and you say, but no, James Wood is already on the. Never mind. I can't make this make sense. How is Kobe Mayo not in the futures game? How, Sway? How? Somebody explain it to me like I'm 2. Like, really get to the bottom of this. Because you can't make it make sense to me otherwise. I don't care.
Unfortunately, I don't know.
Yeah, nobody does. I'm guessing Dave Futures is the one that just handpicks who he wants in the game.
Mr. Futures?
Mr. Futures.
Okay. I guess you can't argue with him.
Yeah, right. He's Mr. Futures. What are you going to do about that? Today's show also brought to you by County Sports Zone, countysports.zone. Anything that you want to know as we start looking ahead to the fall and high school football season. Previews all summer long, plus all the latest news. A lot of commitments, obviously, in the last couple of days. Probably going to be a few more. Jeff Exenor did commit to Penn State, but, Malik Washington told us he's trying to get him to change his mind and join him at Maryland. Blake Woodby, the cornerback from St. Francis, is going to commit at some point, we presume soon. All that stuff. Find everything you need to know. countysports.zone. Proudly sponsored by your local Toyota dealer, buyatoyota.com. We'll come back in. We will get a tidbit and tubular to wind down for a Tuesday edition of Glenn Clark Radio.
Treat yourself and taste the Baltimore tradition that is the legendary Costas Inn. Hey, it's Stan the Fan Charles. For over 50 years, the Costas Inn has been a Baltimore original, dishing out their legendary fat, delicious, award-winning crab cakes and steamed crabs. It's crab season, so sit back and crack some crabs while watching the Birds pursue another divisional title on Costas's 15 TVs. On Monday night, the Costas Inn offers their half-pound jumbo lump crab cake with 2 sides for under $30. So head on down to the Costas Inn today at 4100 North Point Boulevard or visit them at costasin.com.
Gambling can be a fun and entertaining experience, but there are risks involved. If you're planning on betting on the game at the casino or on your phone or computer, know your limit, stay within it. Set a budget and a time to stop. Remember, gambling isn't a financial solution and it doesn't mix well with alcohol or drugs. Know the risks and have a plan before you begin gambling. For free and confidential services, call 1-800-GAMBLER 24/7 or go to helpmygamblingproblem.org.
Discover one of Baltimore's hidden gems at Guilford Hall Brewery. Enjoy dinner in our spacious brew pub, sip a signature cocktail in our outdoor dog-friendly beer garden, or take a tour of our brewery. Discover your new favorite local craft beer. From crisp lagers to hoppy ales, there's something for everyone to enjoy. Pair your brew with delicious appetizers and entrees. There are options for the whole family, but you have to try our fan-favorite giant pretzel. Guilford Hall Brewery, where every sip is a celebration. Visit us online at guilfordhall.com.
Make the most out of every day in your Toyota RAV4. Available in hybrid or gas-only models. A RAV4 can get you where you want to go in style. Check out buyatoyota.com for deals on new RAV4s from your local Toyota dealer today.
The drug scene in Maryland is changing. Fentanyl and xylazine are being added to street drugs, and you may not even know it. Xylazine is not even intended for humans, and fentanyl is an opioid 50 times stronger than heroin, and contributed to over 80% of overdose deaths in our state. Anyone who uses drugs, even occasionally, is at risk of overdose. To learn more, visit stopoverdose.maryland.gov or call or text 988.
There he is, Agent 00 Chicken. Nothing can keep him from Royal Farms Chicken Palooza. Because right now, he can get a 3-piece world-famous chicken box for just $8 with a portion of each sale donated to a local charity. Plus, register to win world-famous chicken for a year. Come to Royal Farms Chicken Palooza. It's a real thriller, but it's only for a limited time. Real fresh, real fast. Royal Farms.
The latest edition of Pressbox is available now, and on the cover, Glenn Clark and Stan the Fan Charles sit down for a sports conversation with Maryland Governor Wes Moore, discussing the Orioles and Ravens stadium leases, the future of horse racing in Maryland, and how his own football career at Johns Hopkins shaped him as a leader. This is also our annual travel issue with information about sports tourism opportunities in Maryland for your family to take advantage of throughout the summer. Pressbox is available for free at over 500 locations throughout the region, including 60 Royal Farm stores. Or you can read the entire issue at PressBoxOnline.com, where you can find great betting advice and the best daily coverage of the O's, Ravens, and Terps.
One of the things that's definitely wrong with this country is that this dude still has a job somehow, some way. Glenn Clark.
All right, back in here on GCR as we are winding down on a Tuesday edition of the program. Appreciate John in Little Rock is staying on top of me about this soccer stadium thing. Apparently, the Louisville women's soccer stadium was actually built for the USL team, and then they put the NWSL team in. So the Kansas City women's soccer stadium is the only women's soccer-specific stadium in the country. So we've gotten to the bottom of that today. You're welcome. Now you're going to be able to impress all of your friends with your knowledge. That's what we do.
Thank you, John.
You think you're getting that on Vinny and Haney today, huh? Is that what you think you're getting?
That's what it's all about, too.
Yeah.
Pushing out better stuff than...
That's the point. That's the point. Got no issue with Vinny and Haney, by the way. I have no beef with them. All right. Is there anything else that we didn't cover? I think we can just go ahead and get to it, right? How about we do a tidbit of the day?
Have you ever thought of taking a cruise to these wonderful destinations with sunny skies and beautiful beaches? Well, wait no longer. We're ready for you to cruise from the Cruise Maryland Terminal.
Have a little phrase that you can go from baggage to margarita in about 15 minutes.
Choose fun with an array of destinations, onboard activities, entertainment, and world-class cuisine.
Contact your travel agent and book your cruise today. Let your adventure begin.
All right, what you got for us tidbit-wise? By the way, we didn't mention anything on the air. Mark Viviano announced yesterday that he is retiring from broadcasting after 40 years, and I think he said 22 of them. The last 22 have been at WJZ. Mark Viviano is a gem of a human. He is a professional in every sense of the word. I believe he's going to join us tomorrow, right? Mm-hmm. I can't say enough good things about Mark Viviano, who has always been very pleasant to be around. Of course, will be kind of forever iconic in this town because he was the one that first reported the Ravens or the Browns were moving to Baltimore. Like, that will always be with Mark Viviano. He briefly, because he had been at WBAL and then he briefly left to do something national at, what was that called? CNN SI, which was going to be the competitor to ESPN News years ago. Was a collaboration between CNN and Sports Illustrated, and then he ended up coming back at WJZ where he's been. And, of course, he did the show on 1300 and then later 105.7 for years as well. I started working with Viv at 1300 in 2005, 2006, whatever year that was. I just remember getting a call one day from Viv just asking me to help him out with some TV coverage of Ravens rookie minicamp. And I was like, giddy. I was like, Mark Viviano. I was so excited about it. Love Viv. Again, just an incredible human being and, a professional in every sense of the word. So
there's a place.
Jamie Costello retiring a couple weeks ago, Viv retiring, some of the stalwarts of Baltimore broadcasting, and the era is changing, right? Like, it's just not local broadcasting is not what it was, 20, 30, 40 years ago. And for a lot of us, that's a bummer. For a younger generation, they're like, yeah, TikTok. Like, what do you want me to say? Like, we don't watch local news. We don't watch. And that's the other kind of scary part about it is somebody asked me, like, who's going to replace Mark Viviano? And anymore, you don't know that, like, stations will definitively even hire a sports person. It used to be there were 2 sports reporters at least on staff at every local news station. Now, Channel 11 still has 2 with Jerry and Pete, and Channel 45 still has 2 with Morgan and the guy or the young man that's on with Rocco. Thank you. And then Sean's over at ABC2, but for a little while ABC2 had nothing, like no one after Garceau and Rob Carlin left. They just incorporated sports into news, and that's the scary part. Like, WJZ, since Dan Saunders has been gone, has never hired a second sports reporter, and you just never know when they decide, like, that's not going to be part. We'll see. I'd be surprised. Like, I would think that they'll try to hire somebody, but it's just a different time in broadcasting anymore. That's the reality of it. Like, I looked around at the Orioles game on Saturday, and there were no TV reporters there. And I get it, right? Like, they're saying, well, people can watch the highlights anywhere. We don't need to show the highlights of the Orioles game. We can just maybe during the 11 o'clock newscast mention the Orioles game and that the Orioles won tonight. Like it's not a highlight business anymore unless there's a big, like maybe you feel silly if somebody throws a no-hitter, right? And then you're not there to provide coverage of that, but the likelihood of that is slim. What's really going to be particularly newsworthy, it was just alarming to me. I don't think I'd ever been to an Orioles game, sat in the press box at an Orioles game where there were no TV sports reporters there. That was kind of a wild thing for me. Sorry. Anyway.
But you're going to bring it all back.
Yes, I'll be the one.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's probably the first call that WJZ makes. Hey, buddy. In fairness,
we need you.
You want full disclosure? The job that Sean Stepner took at Channel 2, they tried to hire me for that job. They did. I don't think I've ever. Have I talked? I think I've talked about that before. I don't know if I've talked about that or not.
I didn't know.
When the old radio station went under,
okay,
we had some meetings and sat down with some of the folks at Channel 2, and they pitched the idea to me. And I thought I was unqualified, frankly. Like I just said, I don't think I'm your guy, and I think that it actually was. We're going to go through a deep history.
Okay.
If you've listened to this show from day one, 10 years ago, Kyle Ottenheimer started with me on the first day that we started the show in 2014. And then for a little while, Kyle disappeared. It was because Kyle had a job at ABC2. And in hindsight, we were to understand that they were actually unhappy with the fact that I didn't take the job with them and instead launch something else. And so they told Kyle he couldn't moonlight over here anymore. And then Kyle just quit his job at ABC2. What heck of a career choice. Quit his job at ABC2 to come work for me. Which I'll always appreciate about Kyle, and I love Kyle, and everybody knows that. But yeah, that's a thing that happened. I could have been a TV sports person, despite look at me. Look at all this. All of this could have been.
Well,
a
maybe
TV
they would have paid to fix all that.
Yeah, maybe. Maybe. Sean's done a great job. I just saw Sean at the event that I did for EastCom, the SID conference last week. I think Sean's going to come in and hang out with us and do a show at some point. And he's done a great job, and he was a great hire for them. But it is one of those, who knows? Who knows? There probably wouldn't be a Glenn Clark radio. There probably I don't think I'd be over on 105.7. I don't know. That's probably not true. They had been talking to me for a long time. But I don't know how much play-by-play I would have done because there's got to be a separation of church and state to some extent. I don't know. I don't know what it would have looked like if I would have taken that gig. But I had never edited video at that point in my life. And anymore in sports, in TV broadcasting, you're like a one-man band. You got to do all your own. You got to be your own camera person. You got to be your own. You got to do all of it. And I was like...
And Nightcrawler told us that. Yeah.
What's that?
Nightcrawler. Yeah.
Right, correct. Exactly right. And I just said, I've never done that before. When I was in college, that's how old I am, we learned how to edit video on tape. On reels.
Jeez.
That's how old I am. I had never used video editing software at that point in my life. I was like, I don't think that... What, are you going to hire me and put me on tomorrow? I am not going to be ready. I would not be. And I was kind of doing the bit where I was hoping that I could buy some time a little bit. I'm going to say no, but maybe we can revisit this down the road. And then it just didn't work out that way. And that's fine. I was not meant to be a TV. I think that we're good now. I think everything's okay all these years later. But yeah, that's the story. I did straight shoot. All of this almost never happened because that was one of the things that was on the table at the end of the radio station was for me to take the job that ultimately Sean Stepner got at ABC2.
The guy that probably would have taken the job, Willie Castro, because he does it all.
Yeah, it's a great point.
He does it all. He became the first player in MLB history over the weekend to appear in at least 20 games at all of second base, shortstop, third base, center field, and left field, all in the same season. And he's made 10-plus starts at all 5 of those positions as well.
How about that?
And he's also pitched twice this season too.
Why not?
So first player to start in
only twice
or appear 20 games at 5 different positions, and again we're halfway through the season. So yeah, Willie Castro, he does it all for the Twinkies. Garrett Crochet did strike out 10 as well, And he has 2 games. He has 2 games this season with 10 strikeouts and no walks, and that is tied for the second most in a pitcher's first 18 career starts with 10 strikeouts, no walks. Who is number 1?
Roger Clemens.
No. 10 strikeouts, no walks in their first 4 times in their first 18 starts.
This is almost impossible.
He's on the Orioles.
He's on the Orioles? Yeah. Great, not Grayson. He didn't strike. Corbin Burns?
Corbin Burns. 4 starts.
You just don't associate Corbin Burns with like a big, you know.
Right, yeah. I mean, I guess in his first game here, obviously. But yeah, since then, not really. And then, so then Max Scherzer, who we saw over the weekend or Friday night, he is obviously one of the greatest pitchers of all time. He has the, we'll do this one. We'll do this one. He has the second most on Friday night. He is, well, actually, it's not like he moved up the list, but he is second active pitchers with most games started with 450 starts. Who is number 1? And can you round out all the guys with more than 300? So that'd be the top 10.
Clayton Kershaw.
Clayton Kershaw is number 3 on the list.
I forgot was active last week. Verlander.
Verlander is number 1, 518 starts, most among active pitchers.
DeGrom.
No.
Really?
DeGrom, geez, how far down the list?
Wow.
He's got less than 228.
Huh.
That's just 2 injured. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I get that, but I'm still a little surprised by that. Yu Darvish.
You are wrong. 277. 277. So he is 13th.
Okay. How about... Jesus, this really has thrown me off here. Lance Lynn.
Lance Lynn is a good, excellent guess. 5th on the active list, 334 starts.
How about Garrett Cole?
Garrett Cole rounds out the top 10, 303. Yeah.
Charlie Morton?
Charlie Morton, 4th on the list.
Okay.
Morton 4th, Lance Lynn 5th. Then we have, so we're looking at 6 through 9.
Well, okay, I don't know, because I saw that he got traded. Dallas Keuchel, is he?
Dallas Keuchel is just outside.
Oh, come on.
264. I know, I forgot. He made a start for the Twins the other day.
Yeah.
I was like, what? So this is another guy named
Well, he
Keuchel?
got traded. I was like,
I was like,
he's in the bigs? Sonny Gray?
Sonny Gray is 11th. 285. 285. There's another.
Chris Sale. I've been doing a hell of a job of forgetting Chris Sale.
No, well, he's on the list.
Shut the.
278.
Who the F is on this list?
There are 2 former Orioles on the list.
2 former Orioles on the list. There's no way Kevin Gausman has that many starts.
No, not Kevin Gausman. Gausman is
Kyle Gibson.
14th. Yes,
Kyle Gibson.
Gausman's right up there. He's 1 behind Yu Darvish. 2 behind Chris Sale. But yes, Kyle Gibson 8th, 309.
Another former Oriole on the list. Oh, Wade Miley.
Wade Miley, 310. And then
is Aaron Nola?
Aaron Nola's just outside.
Son of a
252
bitch.
for Aaron Nola. This guy is
okay.
All
right, fine. Go ahead. I don't want to be here all day.
They're both National League East pitchers.
They're both NL East
remaining
pitchers. They're both. Oh, Quintana?
Yes, Jose Quintana. He is 6th.
Is it Patrick Corbin?
It is Patrick Corbin, 309, tied with Kyle Gibson. Yeah, tied for 8th.
Am I missing one more?
No, that is all. Scherzer will go to the 10th. Yeah.
Jesus.
Well done.
Jesus, that's a hell of a list. All right, let's do this.
There is a place where tradition, family, and community gather, where the aspirations of talented young competitors takes root, and where the crossroads of history, culture, and renewal come together. This spring, experience America's newest and most innovative ballpark, Meritus Park in Hagerstown, Maryland, home of the Atlantic League Flying Boxcars. Plan your getaway today. You're welcome in Hagerstown, Maryland.
All right, here's what's coming up totally tubular-wise. Orioles open up their 3-game series in Seattle, 9:40. I believe are they all different game times this week?
No, or what is it, 9:38 tomorrow?
I want to say like one's like 10:10. Yeah, tomorrow's 10:10, and Thursday is 4:10. And I got to be up at 5 on Thursday morning to go do the radio show.
Just don't go to bed.
10:10. Thanks a lot.
Well, it's going to be Burns.
10-10 wins.
Burns.
Presumably Burns and Gilbert.
It's maybe a 2-hour game.
I mean, hopefully. And the Mariners can't score anyway.
It'll be 1-0.
We'll see. Anyway, that's also if you happen to live in the Phoenix or Los Angeles markets. So Andrew Steck, good news. You can watch it on MLB Network tonight.
Lucky guy.
Wimbledon right now on ESPN. They got an episode of The Ultimate Fighter tonight at 8 o'clock. And then the Fever and the Aces. So Caitlin Clark against the best team in the league tonight at 9:30 on ESPN. Euro right now, the Netherlands up 1-0 on Romania as Griffin's trying to make a dramatic come from behind in the table where we don't even know if the scores are legitimate. That's on Fox Sports 1. On Fox at 3 o'clock, Austria and Turkey. Or Turkey.
Yeah, Turkey.
That's at 3. That's the Fox game today?
Well, Austria won their group.
I hear you, but it's just wild. Copa tonight on Fox Sports 1, Brazil, Colombia at 9 o'clock. Another big one for Griffin, obviously.
Viva Colombia.
They've been hot, but Brazil's a different animal. And on Fox Sports 2, Costa Rica, Paraguay.
Viva Paraguay.
Both of those at 9 o'clock tonight in the Copa. Other baseball, Masson, Mets, Nationals at 6:45. TBS, Phillies, Cubs at 8. MLB Network, Diamondbacks, Dodgers at 10. That's also both on MLB TV and ESPN+. I don't know. Nice. Monumental and ESPN3 for Mystic Sparks tonight at 10 o'clock. CBS Sports Network for Angel Reese in the Chicago Sky as she looks to continue. It's 10 games now on the double-double streak for Angel Reese against the Atlanta Dream tonight at 7. WWE NXT tonight at 8 on the USA Network. Non-sports.
Well, Hard Knocks off season with the New York Giants.
Off season?
Yeah.
Is there?
Yeah.
I guess I saw it. Maybe I realized I saw a promo for it, and then I just thought they were previewing the training camp.
No, it's the Giants. So I guess I think I want to say it starts around the draft.
Who's training camp with then?
The Giants? What do you mean?
It's both.
Oh, training camp is with. I guess I don't know.
Is it the Bears?
I don't know who.
It's the Bears. I did think it was the Bears.
Yeah, okay. The
They're doing
Bears.
3 different Hard Knocks this season.
Yeah.
God,
they're just going to be
off
churning them all out.
Yeah.
And I can't wait. 9 o'clock on HBO.
All right.
It'll be available on Max. The Acolytes on Disney Plus, and it is the series finale of Clipped. So everybody's going to be tuning into that on Hulu as well. Eddie Murphy will be on Fallon, and that's it. Beverly Hills Cop 4 comes out tomorrow.
I didn't know there was a Beverly Hills Cop.
It's on Netflix only.
And who's in it?
Eddie Murphy. Joseph Gordon-Levitt is in it. They're bringing back. I forget the names. But I think it's people from the originals. You're not.
I mean, I was never a big Beverly Hills Cop fan.
Oh, Maddie Matheson also on Fallon.
Sure. All right. Thanks today to.
The Bear.
I know. Thanks to Connor Newcomb.
Oh, you're done with the Bear. I forgot.
It's fine. I'm still watching. It's just all right. Thanks to Dave Sims. Thanks to Gregg Rosenthal. We'll get it up on the greatest hits section of the.
Oh my God, it's so good.
Tab at GlennClarkRadio.com. Drew scheduled to join us tomorrow.
Yes.
As we mentioned, Mark Viviano is going to join the program tomorrow as he announced his retirement, and Jake Mintz from Fox Sports. We will catch up with him to talk some Orioles and some trade deadline and stuff and things. Thanks to everyone at PressBox, all of our great sponsors and partners, including Ocean City, Live Casino and Hotel Maryland. Visit Hagerstown in Washington County, Cruise, Maryland, Guilford Hall Brewery, Royal Farms, the Ed Block Courage Awards, HelpMyGamblingProblem.org, the Costa Sin, MSAA, the Baltimore Orioles, your local Toyota dealer, BuyAToyota.com, and Easy Pass. Thanks to Griffin, at Griffin_Bass. Follow us, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok, at Glenn Clark Radio. Have a great Tuesday evening. Go Birds. I'll see you 7 to 9 on 105.7 The Fan. Duke sucks.